And welcome back to the SPL Kickoff Tournament with our grand finals right around the corner here with this next set. It's going to be a World's Finals rematch between the Tartarus Titans and the Atlantis Leviathans. And talking about those SWC Season 8 finals, we just had the documentary show right before part 2 of that documentary specifically going over that grand finals. If you want to rewatch it, it's going to be premiering live on our Smite Pro YouTube channel at 2 p.m. in just what is this, like 19 minutes from now, according to what my computer says right here. So if you missed it when we were showing it earlier, make sure you tune over to the YouTube channel, Smite Pro on YouTube, to rewatch that. Or if you want to wait until right after this set is done, you can do that too. My name is J Max Tucker. With me, though, on the desk, I've got Trelly Relly to get ready to kick off this big set. As I said, it's a World's Finals rematch. I mean, everybody's been waiting for this now that we've gotten to see these teams promote themselves up through this tournament to this point. I mean, what a storyline that we get. We get a grand finals rematch. We had a quarterfinals rematch early. We had a semifinals rematch. We've had so many Worlds rematches this week.
Yep, and the only difference here is that SOT has taken the place of obviously Benji, but besides that, it's going to be the same sort of action-packed matches that you just watched if you saw that documentary. So maybe, some blood in the water there. One team wanting to hold their title, one team wanting to get some revenge in this matchup.
Yeah, you can see the journey that both of these teams have made to their brackets. 2-0s for both the Leviathans and the Titans in their first day, 3-0s both yesterday, and now they'll face off for one final best-of-5 matchup to round this tournament out. We had Jade Dragons get their 2-0 over the Scarabs earlier on today, and now we are here in this final set of the SPL Kickoff Tournament. Now, I think it's right to kind of dial in with SOT here, specifically the Titans, to kind of talk about them first. They have made their adjustment. Benji, no longer the solo laner for this team. It's now SOT, who moved over from the Scarabs, now on to the Titans. And a lot of people, including some of the players out on the field, have been talking about how SOT just feels like he's slotted right into this team, no problem.
Yeah, he's got a deep god pool. He's always been able to, carry these sort of games when he gets ahead. He's got crazy mechanical skill. I know Mifflin always hypes him up, so I won't harp on it too much. The man knows how to play Smite and knows how to play that solo lane specifically. So SOT, a good fit for this Tartarus Titans roster. It's going to really see, how much that changed in the World Finals rematch, just adding this new player.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been seeing, at least for this week, and don't know how long we'll see it, all the way through this and, going into the SPL, but we've been seeing an immense amount of assassin solo lanes. SOT has been running out the Nemesis. We've been seeing Cleanup, Bastet, Camazot, so many of these assassins making their way. I think we even had a Susano earlier on from Scary Deeb. So these assassins going out there always kind of bring up these mechanical aspects of these players. So when you have these solo laners like SOT who can play these kinds of gods, even if you want to throw Thor in the mix there, one of the first players to bring that one out there, I got to imagine this is going to be a crazy solo lane today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Assassins, as you said, have been really potent right now in the solo lane specifically. Maybe just because of this tournament. Maybe they just want to try something new. But either way, SOT on this Nemesis and the Kalina specifically are the picks that I want to zone in on. He's looked really solid on them. Anytime he gets ahead in this lane, which he does get ahead a lot, he seems to just run the game.
And then obviously the rest of the team still around him, again, because they haven't played with each other as a full team for very long. It is going to take a little bit of growing pains to get used to, but it seems like we've said that SOT has been able to slot himself into this team fairly well. He's still got the remainder of that Titans roster around him. Aurora and Cyclone over in that duo lane, and then Paul and Layers to round out that mid-jungle 2v2 combo here. So it seems that, people often say solo might be one of the harder ones to slot in, but at the same time, one of the easier roles because they just kind of have to move themselves over and kind of readjust with that team. And talking a lot about the solo lane, we actually do have the newest member of the Titans, SOT, standing by for our pregame interview. First off, congrats on making it here to the grand finals of this tournament. Even though you weren't a part of this, Worlds run with this team to go up against the Leviathans, what's kind of the talk around the team here for this, Worlds rematch?
I mean, not too much differently. We're kind of just treating it like like another day of the job kind of. It's not like too much on the line. Of course, we're not going to get anything for winning. But we are excited because, Leviathan's definitely probably the best team or one of the best teams, and so we're able to get a lot of practice from this game, from this set.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been talking to some of the players like this is, kind of like a glorified, kind of real try-hard scrim kind of matchup here and there. And we've been seeing a lot of these assassin solos more than anything coming out of a lot of these players. That's just something that all you guys are just having a lot of fun with right now. Were you probably going to be expecting more assassin solo down the road?
Yeah. I'm just naturally an assassin player. I think I'm very good at assassins, and they're probably my preferred class. I think they're pretty solid right now, especially with the Soul Eater buff. And they're being played a lot in ranked, so it's kind of like the thing people are doing. But I just overall just enjoy assassins a lot. So if I ever get a chance to play them, I do. So.
Yeah. Well, it seems it's been working out well for you guys so far. I'll let you get back with the team. Thanks for taking the time to interview, and good luck in your set.
Thank you.
Just having fun overall. I mean, between scrims, ranked, which is the majority of what these pro players are playing, they're usually hitting one of those two. They're not often, unless you're the Leviathans, hitting like a 2 a.m. arena kind of queue out here. But it's always interesting to hear, some of the thought process on the solo laners. Like, man, I really love these super, bulky, tanky kind of style guys. These run it downs. I don't take a whole lot of damage. I deal a whole lot. But SOT the opposite. I was out here saying I'm just an assassin player through and through, and the fact that they're kind of meta-ish right now, it seems to be a perfect fit for him, Trelly.
Yeah, at the very least, if you're just picking these things to have fun, I mean, it's looking very fun. I mean, getting ahead early in this lane, just being able to run around, rotate early. We saw Final K play the Zhongqi, so a lot of different solo matchups in this tournament so far. And I think SOT's had a fantastic look on these assassins specifically. So if he's just doing it for fun, I mean, it's fun to watch, so keep it up.
It's definitely been an entertaining weekend so far with all of these wild picks, these assassin solos and everywhere else. But SOT's got to square up against the former world champion in Yarkor over in that solo lane for the Leviathans. And that whole Leviathan squad still sticking together after their world championship victory. No change-ups to the team, no changes to the coach at all. Still sticking as that 5-man unit out here. And I think it's safe to say that what SOT was saying out here is the Leviathans are just one of the better teams that we're seeing out on the field right now.
Yeah, Yark the Shark, they call him that for a reason. The man has a deep god pool, and he does not, very little misplays in that man's gameplay. If you've ever watched him play, it's very rare that you'll be like, oh man, Yarkor, what are you doing? It's almost always, oh, Yarkor, what are you doing? That inflection is going to change because of the plays that he's able to make. The 1v3 in Worlds, as we saw that documentary specifically, is one of those heads-up plays where you're just like, oh my goodness, this man is so good at Smite. So Yarkor, obviously going to be a tough lane matchup for SOT specifically, but I think they're both very qualified to play, at least at this level for sure.
And one thing that we've been seeing a lot in this weekend is the junglers getting very active as well. And Panatom is no stranger to this. He's been playing a lot of facilitator-style gods towards the tail end of Season 8. Coming up until this event, we've been seeing a lot of the Circuit come out here, which now with our changes, still a bit of a facilitator, but also can become one of those late-game hyper carries. And dialing in kind of towards this Gilgamesh was, one of the gods that he played consistently throughout this world. And even today, it's still a god that is consistently being banned out.
Yeah, right now those top pick warriors, the Erlong and the Gilgamesh, very popular in the jungle right now. Panatom can pilot them quite well. Obviously, the Circuit yesterday, I saw him 100-0. So many people late game. Those full damage Circuit plays are always fun to look at. So anytime this man is on the field, he's going to be making plays everywhere on the map. He gets very active early. He's very rotation-wise. He wants to be all over. So it's going to be very exciting to watch what he can do in this matchup.
And always the the ongoing discussion kind of joke about how little farm that Panatom gets compared to how much he gives over towards Shinto in the mid lane. I mean, we've been talking to death on the farm rate that Shinto gets, that Panatom sometimes allows him to get out there, but at the same time, Panatom is making his mark pretty much everywhere on the map at this point. If Yark needs help over in solo lane, which isn't very often, Panatom's willing to go over there or maybe help out that mid or duo. And talking about Panatom, we do have him standing by for our pregame interview. First off, congrats on making it here to the finals today. Now that you have this World's Finals rematch, it's obviously only one little change on the side of Titans, but is there any extra emphasis on this set today for your team?
No, I think it's kind of like the same. I know like the Titans are like a different roster with Troll, but I mean, he's a great solo laner as Benji, so it's like no difference.
We've been seeing a lot of the Circuit come out of you. We know we've seen the rebalances to Circuit. How does she kind of feel now that she's more of this glass cannon jungle style?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that, like a glass cannon. Like you can kill someone like so easily, but you can die like one shot.
So it's feeling pretty good out there for the junglers being able to get that. But alongside that, we do still have some of these more setup gods, even with the changes to Gilgamesh out here. He still seems to be one of the more popular picks. Is that a god that a lot of you guys really still look toward being able to pick up if you have that opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, like our team, we're kind of like down to play whatever is good on the matchup or the set, whatever.
And in this set today, I mean, we've talked to some teams that are like, yeah, we're treating it kind of like a glorified scrim, still having some fun, but still kind of getting out here. Can we expect to see some fun stuff come out of the team today?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hopefully we do get to see some of that. Thank you for taking time for the interview. I'll let you get back with the team. Good luck. So we're going to have some fun more than anything out here, and I like the enthusiasm, specifically on the Circuit, because that was one that, when a lot of people heard about the Circuit rebalance, it was a whole lot of gasps across the room, like, what? Yep. What are all these changes to Circuit? There's so many numbers out here. And a lot of things that people have been saying, the pros are saying, man, Circuit feels really good in the jungle right now. Obviously less so when you build her more towards that bruiser style. So seeing the enthusiasm of the fact that Circuit is this now 100-0, this glass cannon style god? It's a nice little light shine here on the Pro League.
I just feel bad for Rongyu because he was loving that Circuit. now Panatom just keeps saying like, nope, we're picking the Circuit. It's for me. Rongyu guys, so go back to your Yamojas. Go back to those sort of style of picks because
no.
I'm gonna be having fun on this Circuit pick. So I just feel a little bit bad that the buff came at a perfect time to say, hey, we're gonna nerf your god pool a little bit, but buff your jungle. So at least he's gonna be getting the fruits of his labor. Circuit's gonna be getting all the farm on the map, making sure to get everyone else ahead in that regard. But Rongyu doesn't get to get those sweet Circuit plays anymore.
You mean the ones where he sits in the middle of a lane for 2 minutes at a time and just doing nothing but soaking up farm while nobody else is paying attention to him?
That's exactly the type of plays I'm talking about.
But interesting enough, we've been seeing the Titans play and the Leviathans play this whole weekend, and one god that's come up consistently between the two of them, specifically over in that support role, has been this Atlas. This might be one of the first times, Charlie, that we actually see a priority Atlas pick between these two teams.
I definitely think so. I've been harping on it for a while now since this tournament started that I wanted to see, number one, more Atlas play because we didn't get to see it too much, and number two, more contention for the pick because it's very strong right now. We've seen what Aurora is able to do, and it looks unfair. As you guys were saying, it looks like, picking someone up by their coattails and saying, like, hey, give me your money. It's like a shakedown, and that's the sort of thing that Atlas does. He's like a glorified Fenrir, but it's not an ultimate. You just get to pick someone up and say, hey, smack this guy and get some free damage. So not only that, we also saw Inbound steal the Gold Fury across the map. But the plays like this, Atlas, these are the reason that Atlas is going to be, highly contested in this matchup specifically. So we'll have to see if they opt to, just let it, if your first pick, let it through. If not, just ban it away because both of these supports look really solid on it.
Yeah, I mean, the control, the shred that comes with that ultimate, if you drop it on the middle of an objective, in the middle of a giant team fight, hit a few people with that. I mean, this god is absolutely wild, and I think it's completely crazy that we haven't been seeing nearly as much. Again, maybe teams trying to hold out on things. Not everybody wants to show, yeah, I'm god tier Atlas. Make sure you ban it every time against me. But it has been nice seeing some of the diversity of the new gods and some of the players out here this week. And I know, I think coming into today, Gore said we had like 68 unique god picks so far this weekend. And obviously with these two sets, maybe we'll see a couple more added to that list.
I mean, you would hope so, right? If the teams really have this mindset where they're trying to have fun, still be competitive, they still want to have that competitive drive, and everyone wants to win, obviously, but want to try new things, not give away too many strats, and we should, in theory, be seeing a wider variety of these sort of god picks just to see what works in a competitive setting.
It is a best of 5 for this final, so you got to win 3 games out of this one in order to take home the victory today in this SPL Kickoff tournament. And again, that's been the name of the game for these players is talking, it's kind of like a scrim, but we're still taking a little bit more. You get the LAN experience out here because next week is the official kickoff of the SPL. That's when these teams are really going to hit the ground running. That's when we're really going to start seeing what this new meta truly looks like here at the top level of play. So again, teams don't want to give away everything just yet, but we have been seeing some lines out here onto what some of these players have been prioritizing.
I'm really liking to see the changes in the mid lane specifically. I mean, we had this meta where it was just everyone was saying mages are so broken, mid lane is so broken, but now we're seeing not so much as the full damage mid laners, it's more so the half hybrid tank style mid laners.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of change-ups to this mid lane just in these last few weeks alone, but picks and bans for game number 1 between the Titans and the Leviathans in our SPL Kickoff Grand Finals and the SWC Season 8 rematch between these two teams. And it's going to start out with bans of RTO and Circuit on the side of the Tartarus. Titans, Leviathans, they'll take away Kleena, Erlong Shen. All gods here, no surprise. I mean, top-level players on these gods and just how potent these gods have been so far this weekend. No surprise seeing these banned here, though, Charlie.
No, not at all. I mean, this Circuit we've just been harping on for quite some time now. Just watching Panatom play it yesterday, it just seems you don't really want to give him this character right now. She's able to do so much damage. The early pressure is absurd, as well as that late game burst if you're able to hit the full chain of her damage. So taking that away, that's a no-brainer. On the flip side, the Erlong, we touched on it a little bit before. Layers loves this pick. It's a very strong early damage as well, so both of those make no surprise to me. And of course, the Kleena. We know what SOT can do on the Kleena. We've been watching it. Obviously, neither of these teams has dropped even a game on their way to the finals here, and the Kleena was a big part of that.
And no change-ups really here as far as the bans, though, for what's been top priority out here. The last 2, Camazotz and Gilgamesh, banned away, so a couple more, or at least one more jungle, at least. Though with the Titans, Camazotz can always be a jungle pickup here, but it would ban towards the solo lane specifically against Yark Core. So 2 Yark bans, a Panatom ban out of the Titans. Meanwhile, just nothing but jungle here from the Leviathans. and a first pick Zeus is probably not the one I would have expected out of the Titans here.
Yeah, I mean, again, we did just see that documentary where Paul was pretty happy with his performance on the Zeus. He just felt like he wasn't able to live. Now, though, the builds are a little bit different, as I was just touching on. You see this sort of the Legion Helm, you're seeing a Void Stone, those sort of things. The Zeus is going to be able to build a little bit more hybrid, not going to need quite as much peel, but still being able to do just as much damage. And one thing that we touched on, J-Mac, the Atlas is still open.
Yeah, Atlas still up for grabs, though. So is Yamoja, one of Rongyu's signature picks. We'll see which one he may prioritize here, or if he'll let the Titans go ahead and choose that pick first and see what he gets left with after. Uller and Daji, though, the second picks here now for the Leviathans. So we've got the jungler situated here with Panatom, already a great one to go up against the Zeus. And then Uller with that mid and Hunter, or in that dual lane flex potential here. Not quite sure exactly where that is going to go with these Leviathans.
Yeah, Daji, going to be a no-brainer there. Super easy to dive Zeus. Make sure that no sort of CC immunity in Zeus's kit, obviously, so going to get that beads down every time, unless a Magi's Best-Singer is built, or a cleanse of sorts. But either way, you go up into the Palau, you can juke the Lightning Storm. Just a great sort of counter pick to Zeus specifically. Really difficult to play into a Daji when you're a Zeus, but it looks like they are hovering the on her. And another pick, which, again, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I really feel like Atlas would have been their option there. I mean, Aurora, again, has just looked so solid on this pick. Maybe, though, he's just feeling super confident and doesn't really need to pick it right now. So, hey, hold that thought. That on her was just switched over to the Atlas, so maybe that is going to be their option. But the Nemesis is going to be their, could be a jungle of choice or solo of choice, but given the fact that SOT's been playing it, it could be that solo lane Nemesis.
Yeah, that Nemesis, we even saw mid that Pagon earlier on. I doubt that we'll see it here since the Zeus has already been locked in, though. Nemesis and Atlas, as we've been talking to death on this god. Now Rongyu has the option, if he so chooses, to go over towards the Yamoja. But at least for now, we'll have to hold off on that question. Eset locked in, and this might just be going over to Shinto. I mean, we talked to him in the post-game interview after their first set of the weekend, and he was really singing the praises of this god. One of those gods, you give her an inch and she's going to take a mile out here. Eset has been mostly known towards the support role, but as of late, we've been seeing a lot of success in this mid role.
Yeah, anyone right now that can make use out of this sort of hybrid mid build is going to be super strong right now. Eset has a lot of self-peel built into her kit, a lot of healing with that Circle of Protection, as well as some great Gold Fury or Fire Giant control. So I think this is just a no-brainer here. Shinto does like this pick, as he said in that interview, and it just makes sense to out-pressure the Zeus or at least give some sort of peel for his squad when they're diving or backing up. It's a good middle ground pick, I would say. Now, we see the Fafnir and the Yamoja band, so Rongyu is not going to be able to whip that out if he wants to pick it. Again, the Eset probably going mid, so that won't be a support Eset, I guess, unless Rongyu wanted to try it. Again, they are saying they're trying to have fun here, so they could try something new, but in my head, I'm still pretty concerned. I'm pretty, certain that's going to Shinto in the mid lane.
Yeah, most likely here. And the other bands on the side here for the Leviathans were the Achilles and the Medusa. So shot at the dual lane, taking that Medusa out, and then a shot at Layers, I'll say here more than anything else. He's one of the few who are running this Achilles jungle, but it will be a Kabrakan now on the side of Leviathans, and that's got my head scratched here, Trelly, because we've got the Eset, so mid lane or support potentially covered with that one. We've already got the Daji, and we know that she's 99.99% going into the jungle. We haven't seen Daji go anywhere else just yet. So does this Kabrakan now look like it may be going over towards Rongyu?
Yeah, Rongyu's going to get this Kabrakan to, hey, you banned away my Yamoja, so I can't wall off the Zeus. Just kidding. I'm going to pick Kabrakan, and I'm still going to wall off the Zeus. Of course, Phantom Shell does have a little bit of a resurgence now, so you can get that shell, use it for a sort of pseudo-Aegis, and also be able to get out of the Kabrakan wall. So that's sort of been the counter we've seen to this Kabrakan pick, because it has seen a big insurgence of play. But that looks like a Rongyu support pick for me. And then on the flip side, it looks like we are going to see a Robin, which again, I'm thinking is going to be the jungle. I think we're going to see Layers on that Robin and just let SOT keep running back that Nemesis. And then Cyclone Spin's going to pick in the on her.
Okay, well, it seems that we've been thrown for an entire loop here. Eset, most likely now slotted over towards that support role as Thoth, the final god, locked in for the Leviathans. Kabrakan, possibly over towards that solo lane instead. So, Kabrakan versus Nem or Robin. Is there a particular matchup, Trelly, that works better for Kabrakan when it comes to those two assassins?
Yeah, I would say Robin doesn't really have any kill potential. He's just going to try to clear the wave effectively. Nemesis, however, going to have a difficult time. She gets her shield popped many different ways by the Kabrakan. 2 different forms of hard CC, making sure to break that shield so there's no sort of healing. The only real option there is to shield the Tremors and then just cancel them right away because you don't want to give her too much healing there. But I do think that because the RDO was banned away from Yarkor, he says, you know what, I'm just going to play another tanky Guardian that does a bunch of damage and has a lot of CC. And the Kraken, I think it slots well there.
And we've been seeing a lot of change-ups to the solo lane Guardian build. You know, previously they were going up against, you know, the Warriors, the ex-Blackthorn Warriors out there, and even some of the Assassins popping in. And then these Guardians, they were just building, like, Breastplate of Valor, Second Eye. We've been seeing a lot of change-ups to that solo build. We've seen the buffs to Voidstone. We've seen the buffs towards Stone of Binding. We've even seen Celestial Legion help make its way in here. And that Jade Emperor's Crown buff that came through. Imagine with this Kraken potentially going to the solo lane here. Still, I'm going to leave some potential that they may be throwing us for a loop entirely here. But with some of those new items here, does it feel like a Kraken solo fits a little bit nicer now?
Yeah, I'm gonna not get thrown for a loop here, and I'm gonna say that the Kraken is solo for this specific example, and I think the Blood-Soaked Shroud upgrade fits really well into his kit. Obviously, a little bit of healing, but also crazy amounts of tank stats. On a Zeus, particularly, I think that Yarkor is going to find some early success with that Voidstone buff we were talking about and just be able to dive him consistently. So, yeah, Kraken, one of the safer picks that we've seen in the solo lane recently. A lot of damage, a lot of high CC early, and then late game, you just sort of get to one-shot people.
And now we're looking at this Atlas E-set kind of a matchup here for these supports. It's something we haven't gotten to really see just yet here. We've been seeing a lot of the E-set and a lot of the Atlas. I'm very curious how this dual lane is going to round out there. Any particular favoritism when it comes to Atlas versus E-set in that support role?
Yeah, we saw a few Atlas attempted counters with like a Nox. We saw once the E-set again into the Atlas. Just anything with sort of interrupt is going to make Atlas's life a little bit harder. The grabs, the gravity well is not going to be coming out as frequently, but I think right now Atlas just kind of has a very strong early game, so it's not real. I don't think he's going to care too much about the E-set.
Well, it's a big game one from our Season 8 Worlds rematch here. Tartarus Titans versus the Atlantis Leviathans in the finals. Who's going to take game number one?
Who's going to be in first place of the SPL Season 9 kickoff tournament? We're going to find out by the end of this best of 5. It's Leviathans versus the Titans. Shinto grabbing himself a Thoth here. Gore Paul on the Zeus. I think the mid lane could have some fireworks here in game one. Was going to say lightning. Was going to say sparks, but I feel like low-hanging fruit with the Zeus picked.
I like all of those though. I think that'd be fun. Maybe that's just me though. That's my
also,
like my brand.
Do you also
of
like low-hanging fruit?
Well, theoretically, right? Because it's like the easiest to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
best
we wouldn't have giraffes if. Wait, no, that's the opposite. Forget it. We're in game one. Gore Titans versus the Leviathans. Worlds rematch between these two teams.
Yes, sir.
The first time since Worlds that these rosters have matched up against one another. A different look at the Tartarus Titans roster, with SOT in the solo lane now. But other than that, the other 9 players are the same from the previous, from the Smite World Championship that just happened. And so I think for these players, Gore, it's a type of things, that man's mentality was, in the rest of the Leviathans, you know, we're coming into this week, we're going to try to win, of course. We're, you know, in a way, it's free practice, right? I mean, it's free in-studio practice for these teams. I don't know if until, like, we get into the SPL or into the first playoff event, the weight will really match, you know, kind of the rematch. I think both teams would probably love to win this setup. But I don't think the weight is there until we get into, like, one of the playoff events.
Yeah, I think it's maybe present, but like, and even in the documentary, like you could see, like the Titans didn't seem like that pressed after the loss, right? Like you lose 3-0, you would expect
for
it.
the viewers.
Yeah, Paul, we just gave the viewers the worst finals or whatever it was he had said. I still thought they were entertaining, but yeah, like they didn't seem as upset. So I feel like for the Leviathans, this is one where it's like, all right, well, we've done it once, we can do it twice, we can do it again and again and again as many times as we need to. I don't know if the Titans took it as true to heart, or maybe it's festered, right? Like at the time, it didn't sink in, but over the last couple of months, it's done nothing but rely on them. And honestly, right now, if I'm Cyclone Spin, I'm just tilted because I keep getting hit by these spirit balls, dude. I mean, Wrong U's on point.
Whoa, there's a gank in mid lane. I was going to expand on Wrong U, but we need to talk about Shinto. First blood to the Leviathans. That's answered back by the Tartarus Titans. Mid lane duel, and Paul has got the damage. Double kill for the Tartarus Titans mid.
And that's, look, that's a great start for a Zeus, man. He didn't have to use his beads, gets the damage out there that he wants, and is able to find himself 2 kills. Granted, you do lose layers for first blood, so that's maybe not the best start overall. Shinto being able to get a little bit, so he shouldn't fall too far behind, but you can already see some of the farm slipping a little more in favor of Paul. And look, Zeus from ahead's going to be really solid. You've already forced Shinto to go for the Aegis over the bead, so he's not going to have safety from CC. There's not a crazy amount from it. Roar is really going to be like the main provider of unsafeness towards Shinto here. And so aggression towards Shinto. And so that Aegis is specifically to try and dodge what we just happened. In fact, I'm kind of surprised he didn't use it.
They didn't use it at all. Maybe realizing that the rundown and the damage was going to be there either way. I was going to say before that fight in the mid lane broke out, Gore, it feels like any support for Rongyu.
Yeah.
I mean, Aurora deserves his credit here as well. But when I think of like skill shot, CC-based supports, the Yemojas, the E-sets, things like that, I'm terrified when Rongyu gets those picks. And so I'm not surprised that this E-set has looked solid already for this duo lane in the Leviathans.
When I think of any support, and it's wrong you playing it, I think I'm a little scared no matter what. So it is like, it just heightens with those that can really enable their lane mate, right? So Zap here, he's playing the Uller, but if you get hit by a Spirit Ball, does a lot of damage max range. It goes up to 1.5x what it normally does. And even if you're building tank, it's still going to be a decent, starter. Plus you get the stun. For an Uller, you can then follow up with a stun and your damage kit, or damage kit, stun, damage kit again, right? Like you have so many options to really just lock people down in this lane. And I think that's something they need to be a little aware of. And luckily, like right now, you've got the Atlas. He's good at peeling, so they're not too worried about it. But anytime Cyclone steps too far forward, stuff like that can really burn him down, where it's just a couple of stuns, all of a sudden, your health bar will just disappear, and all Zap needs is a couple of items to make it happen.
I'm excited for when the supports finally leave this lane. Feels like Anher and Uller are always they're the 1v1s. The 1v1s, right? When we come in studio with the players, and now Zapman and Cyclone spin on either of those two picks. So I'm hoping we get a little 1v1 action over on the left side of the map. Painatom trying to make it a 3 versus 2 though, considering a gank, but likely spotted out, or at least aware enough. The Tartarus Titans are on the left. They'll be able to safely farm up in lane. Purple buff spawns. Layers is here on the right side of the map. Robin going to be a nice bridge pick here in the early part of this game. Allow you some pressure. And that's what the Titans have in the duo lane. Purple buff drop down, and a nice clean invade for the Titans.
And you know what? Small things like that, after a double kill going the way of Paul, that's really where you're going to win a lot of these skirmishes early on. You can tell the team's not doing too much that are putting them out of position. And so it's going to be these neutral objectives, whether you can, well, I guess that's not a neutral objective. That one was just straight up a steal. But then being able to pick up things like your Serpent Lady sitting in lane, being able to find specifically the offering for the Obelisk, because I think that's been like the trade-off, right? And we just saw that Hardcore picks up the offering. I'm not sure. I didn't watch closely enough to see if he got the experience.
About the 1v1 between Layers and Painatom. Layers does not have beads, and this will be a pull. And he doesn't go with the overhead kick. What a smart play from Layers. Avoids the pull in and turns around the 1v1 on the Painatom. That caught me off guard. And I think it maybe caught Painatom off guard a bit as well.
And now Painatom's 0-2. I mean, I'm actually surprised they're still on the same level, 6-6, considering what we have seen out of this. This is a good start and a great turnaround for Layers to be able to showcase what and one this Robin's capable of, but to get some farm up while Painatom
that's smart.
Slowly falling behind.
That's such like an obvious interaction, the CC immunity and using it with the Palau, but I didn't even think about it until it happened there in that moment. And of course, Layers good enough that he does think about it. I'm thinking the moment that chain connects and I see Layers doesn't have beads, that's a kill. And then I'm sort of forgetting, I guess, one of the main parts of the Robin kit. Haven't seen a lot of Robin to that point. I'll bail myself out. We have not seen Robin picked a lot here lately at all. But was a style of pick, Gore, for the early aggression junglers. Maybe throughout Season 7 a little bit. Last year in Season 8, we saw a little bit of Robin. Haven't seen much of it at the beginning of the year here in Season 9. But style of pick that the junglers who like to be active early in the game can really make work.
And I think Layers is, again, one of the players that you just have to be really worried about on most picks that he's going to bring into the jungle. He's showcased a lot of adept play over the last year when it was with the Titans and the Scarabs prior to that. I think he's just been really solid in the jungle, and letting a Robin get hands-on super early on has been the downfall of a lot of teams. So far, they're still in a good spot, 1-1-2. It's not the end of the world, but with a good gank on the duo, which so far, unfortunately, they haven't really been able to find one, that's going to be enough to get like Cyclone super far ahead. It might be enough, another gank on the mid to get Shinto out of the game for a little bit. Things like that would be where that presence of mind can come through. But he also plays really well into the late game in terms of dive, so like you can just chill for a little while and then get active.
Panatom dashes into Sot, but Sot saves his dash on the other end of that. And so things cancel out. Tartarus Titans maybe get some pressure here on the dual lane side of the map. That circle of protection down from wrong use. There'll be a nice heal on the other side, but damage is really what you need, and that's what Paul needs in the mid lane. He dodges out everything, but Panatom's got the gap closed. Lair should return a kill here onto Shinto. Both junglers active and both mid laners dead.
And it's so weird. 2-1 and 2 for both the jungle and mid there for the Titans, then 1-2 and 1 for both the jungle and mid there for the Leviathans.
Those are the only kills on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It's so symmetrical. It's very satisfying.
They're keeping parity for everything. Right. I think that there's so much to be looked at. First off, that should have been a much easier kill on DePaul, but good plays by Paul just make it a little bit more difficult. You have to dive a little further if you're Panatom, and specifically leave Shinto out to dry while Layers comes in to clean things up. But I also think it's worth talking about the fact that you had called out Circle of Protection. I see this Final Judgment. Both of them get used here, but soon enough, when you're looking for Gold Furies, that's a lot of confirmation on one side. Zeus does bring the burn down. We've seen what a good Lightning Storm can do if you just drop it on a Fury onto a Fire Giant and how much DPS that just provides the team in terms of raw damage. But when it comes to getting that last final hit, the Leviathans have a lot of control around that. And we're starting to enter, the middle portion, like the late early game / early mid game, where Gold Furies are going to be up on the horizon after some of these fights. Maybe Pyromancer in a minute when it spawns is going to be something that either of these teams can look at, but the Leviathans have a distinct advantage going immediately into that phase.
Yeah, Leviathan, I mean, you shouldn't lose an objective with Circle of Protection and Final Judgment, but crazier things have happened. We saw an Atlas steal away a Fury earlier on today. Shout out to Inbound. What was it, 120 damage, something absurdly small like that?
Yeah, not a lot.
Granted, it was also in, the SEC play-ins. We saw the Kepri dot tick and steal away a Fire Giant in one of those games. That was pretty fun. Don't often get to see that, but tale is
Season
old as
9,
time.
the year of the wildest steals we'll ever see.
The support steals, that's right. Looking forward to it. Zapman takes half of his HP and damage thanks to the Desert Fury. Aurora in for the body block on the other side, and you can't beads out all of Atlas's body. And so Layers will grab the kill, and Zapman goes down, but the Leviathan's considering a fight. Panatom was for a moment.
And it's a weird dynamic. I mean, Zeus, no beads available to him right now. Beads are still there for Cyclone, and he has CC immunity, and the ult had been used, so you have to kind of wage whether or not Panatom could pull in Cyclone's been there. But it feels like they could have gotten aggressive, maybe just not trusting themselves, thinking it's better to fall back and farm. And we kind of heard it like a little glimpse into it. They're very, very concise when they're discussing things on the Leviathans. And so it feels like let's go farm. Like we don't need the fight, we don't need the kills. We'll, especially as I just mentioned, going into this next phase, they'll be doing well. And now that I'm looking at the experience charts, specifically looking at Shinto, who was down a level earlier, now is past Paul. Now Panatom has passed Layers. Yeah. It's not a huge, massive lead for them, but having just a little bit, despite the way the kills are going, that's a big deal.
Well, it's that fighting versus farming conversation. Is my farm going to be more effective than the time you spend rotating out and finding kills? And for now, it has been for Shinto, has been for Panatom. Yarkor keeps stealing away the, what'd you call her a second ago? The snake lady?
Oh, yeah.
I loved your term for it. Keep stealing away the snake lady in lane. And you're right, Leviathans have slowed this game down. But I love the pace that the Titans are playing with. And I think the video team did an awesome job on that Worlds documentary. But a lot of the conversation I think the Titans had is Paul maybe sensing the team was playing a little scared during the World Championships. I don't know if the whole team agreed, but it feels like the Titans at times let the Leviathans dictate the pace of that World Championship set. And at least in game 1 here, up against the Leviathans, the Titans are, I think, putting more pace, behind it. They gave Layers as this early playmaking style jungler. They're putting some emphasis on Paul in the mid lane, countering out the pressure of the Leviathans. And I think it's a good look for Titans and their fans, at least in the first 12 minutes of this set.
And, it's little openings, right, where you're able to find these kills. Again, they've been able to find a lot. This is where I do get a little worried for them, but look at the Gold Fury, right? You can get a Pyromancer for the Leviathans, you have great secure.
Slow, though.
And This should be where the burn starts up. Yeah, Paul's going to be able to bring a lot more damage to objectives, so it'll take, theoretically, that one's maybe not the best example, a shorter time period for the Titans to burn down any given objective, but of course a much more better secure on the other side. And I think if Shinto, he had the Final Judgment still available, we saw Circle of Protection used for the Pyro. If he had happened to walk over there, probably could have sniped it away if he had wanted to.
Right, you saw the length of the burn there for the Tartarus Titans. This game has slowed down just a bit. There was a burst of kills happening in the mid lane. And unlucky for us, there's no longer a nice symmetry on the scoreboard. There are between Panatom and Shinto, but the 3-1 and 2 now for Layers has broken our symmetry. So we're sad about that. But the game has slowed down just a little bit as SOT jumped on by the Leviathans. Layers is here as an answer, sends some damage back, wrong use way. And Layers and SOT will split in opposite directions. Because the Leviathans are hearing me, Gore, and they want to start dictating some pace of their own.
And again, I like seeing them get aggressive, especially with the opening they have. The thing that catches my eye the most on the board, though, is specifically the heart word that's been picked up for Wrong Yu. And you can see, like, the people he's going against right now, it's not going to be very helpful over in the right-hand lane. They've got nothing but physical damage. The hardcore's still looking for more. They might be able to find something over the wall here.
Yeah, what's Panatom going to do? Remember, Layers now has beads and that CC immunity in kit. Your core has to use the beads. One more tower shot might have killed them off. Up into the Pal Out goes Panatom. That means Wrong Yu tanking up the tower for the time being. Mystic Rush in. This is a 3 versus 2 that the Titans are happy to take. Layers adds another 4-1-2 for the Titans jungler. But Sot's not done.
And the fact that they've got assistance coming. I mean, Atlas is here now. Wrong Yu turns it around, gets the stun. You've got Shinto in the jungle. I don't know. That felt very
This is funny.
weird overall for the Leviathans, right? Like, they kind of try to force something to happen under the tower, and then like things just aren't connecting. Circle of Protection's too short. You get a little bit of damage, but it feels like they really wanted those kills. And they got all the relics out of the side lane over here for the Titans, but you lose a lot in the process. I don't know if the scales really come out in their favor. Actually, I know they don't.
They don't. Literally one kill to
Just
none.
intrinsically.
It was funny, though, for a moment where then the Leviathans backpedal. Another 1v1. We said this could be the opportunity here in the duo lane. Layers makes it a 2 versus 1. Aegis used by Zapman, but he will get away. It was funny for a moment, though, where the Leviathans put out pressure, then they lose a team member, and so they back away, and then suddenly Shinto's rotating over, so the Leviathans start to engage again, and the Titans are the ones backing away. It was a funny tug of war for a moment as the individual reinforcements from either team were arriving. You know, Aurora suddenly showed up, and vice versa. But you're right, 1 kill down as the Tartarus Titans find that over on right. Layers continuing to put pressure on left, but now it's Cyclone Spin under some threat. Up, down, onto Panatom. Zapman takes a whole lot of damage, but Cyclone Spin's got the Aegis, and Panatom gets the Leviathans back on the board.
And I think you're going to need more kills like that, right? Not just on Cyclone, but onto Paul, and theoretically onto, you know, probably Sot at this point. Layers, I think, is a big deal. He's 4-1, so he's going to be worth a little bit when you kill him. But I do think that, like, just watching that Nemesis level 16 to Hardcore's 15, and the presence that we've seen out of Sot on this pick this weekend, yeah, I kind of want to control it. Slow it down. Do whatever you can. Make it stop as fast as possible. And again, that's where I look towards like Wrong Yu's build as well as Hardcore's build. Hardcore has a lot of physical protection. It's going to help him getting aggressive against Layers, Layers, Solo, and Cyclone. Whereas with that Heart Word, you can tell that immediately Wrong Yu is most worried about what Paul's damage is going to be early on. I guess a little bit to Aurora because of what we've been seeing him do on this Atlas. But eventually, you know, he's going to need something, either a sovereignty for everyone around him or at least some physical prots on himself to make sure that he can live through some of these engagements. Because Sot, especially like a tanky E-set, well, and tanky should be put in parentheses there, 1 Nimble, and then you can just burn through her health bar.
Right, I could see your hand quotes, but definitely a hand quotey type moment there. Yeah, a lot of burn the Tartarus Titans have. I would be worried about Paul too, because Paul loves this style of build. You go early, flat pen, something like a Divine Ruin makes a whole lot of sense. Easy application for Paul on this Zeus. And then something defensive. A lot of the times it's a Breastplate of Valor. This game, I guess Mantle of Discord makes more sense for Paul. And then an Ob Shard now completed. So you got this big percent pen item, already some flat pen and some defense. So I am worried if I'm going up against Paul and the level of damage and also some defense that he's got. A lot of that anti-dive too. You know, Breastplate of Valor will help you with physical D. but now you get a stun if you're
Yes.
being dove on, and depending on what that Sands of Time turns into, Paul could be very difficult to kill.
I think you have to look at specifically who's going to be jumping in, right? Panatom Hardcore, if they get to this Zeus, what does he need? Something to get them away, to stop them for just a second. And that's exactly what this Mantle provides, right? So Panatom and Hardcore are the big threats to diving back to Paul specifically. Mantle helps give him prots for both. It gives him a little stun, like you said, to help peel for both. And theoretically, he could try to do it without having to use his beads and Aegis.
Primal Fury low and confirmed by the Leviathans, stolen away without using any of their ultimates. And that is an axe.
There's an axe.
That's an axe from Zapman that steals it away. Massive difference, TBD, but it really keeps it out of the hands of the Tartarus Titans as they slow burn down Gore. This is a very interesting golden XP chart. Because notice how once the killing stopped, once the ganking stopped, the foot was taken off the gas just a little bit. The Leviathans have very slowly pulled that gold and XP back in their favor. Slayer's root Zapman doesn't do much with it. Take an axe and jump on out.
So this axe is more than for killing Gold Furies.
That's right, and it'll stun you and get me out as well. Tower exchange for Pyromancer. Titans still looking for plays on the map.
And honestly, I think like you see the tier 1 tower, it's a nice little chunk of gold back in their favor, but you can see the dip. You had mentioned it, but immediately around that like 13-minute mark, the jump up from the first Gold Fury, a couple of fights afterward for the Titans, and then fighting stops and continues farming in favor of the Leviathans. They get a Fury. Cool, we get a tower. Oh, cool, you got a Pyromancer, right?
Yep.
Everything that just pulls right back over in favor of the Leviathans towards the end there. And that's where a lot of my concern for this is. Now we're 18 minutes in. It's not just the Furies and the Pyromancers anymore. It's Fire Giant conversations. You have so much secure if you're the Leviathans.
You do. Got a good team fight, though, if you're the Tartarus Titans. Zapman nearly impaled against the wall, and Cyclone Spin is swinging damage. Zapman preemptive bead, smart usage there from the veteran, but Lightning Storm down, and Haggis will delay the damage. Zapman leaps away. Aurora's got to get this kill, and the beam through the shielding won't be enough, and he's a magician. Zapman lives on, and in the meantime, Cyclone Spin has died as well. You have invested everything to kill off Zapman, and you won't even get that.
I like where Aurora's mindset is at. I'm going to throw someone away from me. Maybe we'll be able to pick up a couple. Maybe I'll be able to throw a little bit away. But an overcommitment from the Titans, a big chase down, and Zap in what feels like a miracle play. And I honestly thought he was going to die, but not from any of the other moments. When he had the Aegis going and the heal from Wrong Yu got immuned out because of that, that's where I thought that was the final nail in the coffin, that they didn't have it. But then the shell gets popped. It's just enough shielding once he leaps away that there's no chase down. And we had mentioned it earlier, Atlas Ult, like it's so impressive to steal with because of how little it does.
Saad should be dead here. Mantle provides a nice stun. But that's a double dash into a blink from Yarkor and then a wall. And an immediate Fire Giant call from the Leviathans. Aurora just now respawns.
Final
SOT
Judgment.
dead for 45 seconds. You're right, Gore. Final Judgment. Don't have Circular Protection. I don't think you need either. The Tartarus Titans realize this one's gone, and the Leviathans grab the first Fire Giant of the set.
What a wild last like 3 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was relatively even, still favoring the Titans for a majority of this, but like nothing too crazy. And then it just a steal into a confirmation on the Pyromancer to a good couple of fights here for the Leviathans. And now, I mean, look how much damage Zap is dishing out there. Just a little bit of change all of a sudden, opening up a lot of opportunities for him. He has to be careful still.
Zapman, nice axe back as Layers had rooted him in play. Circle of Protection down, but Zapman jumps on out of it. Aurora's used a lot of that individual lockdown already at the beginning of this fight. Cooldown's waiting to come back up, and in behind, here's Yarkor, who's got the stun, but it's beats out by Paul. A good wall corrals 3 members of the Titans in beneath their tier 2 tower, and this is where that cleave damage can really make it work. And the Leviathans, they're making it work. 2 kills underneath the tier 2 tower, 1 kill underneath the Phoenix, and the Leviathans are inside of the Titans base at 21 minutes.
Oh, and they get Cyclone. I don't know, they lose a lot. Like Panatom going down and the health bars that are left.
There's still so much.
There's so many deaths on the side of the Titans, but I don't know.
Man, I mean, that's 45?
Well, you've got 20 seconds until Aurora's back. You need these minions.
doesn't have
Paul
Lightning
does a
Storm.
lot of damage and they're low.
We'll see. We'll see what the call is immediately after
dangerous.
this Phoenix.
He might get a kill right here.
Yeah, nearly. Oh, but it's Aegis out,
They're going
and here
for
go
it.
the Leviathans. Wrong you in with the rest of his squad around the Titan. The Titan's still a few seconds away from respawning. Paul will stand and Paul will watch. as the Titan dies in game 1. Leviathans from over the wall.
You need the damage. Where is
Come on,
it?
Shito. Don't make me a fool. Thank you, Shito, and the rest of the Leviathans end game 1.
Yeah, they're getting a little close there, and that's that risk at the very end, right? You can see that the damage numbers are there, but their health was just a little low walking into that. I think if Paul, either A, has Lightning Storm going into that, it's a completely different story. They get a massive kill, or if he's able to find a really good bounce, all of a sudden all of the Leviathans fall apart. But unfortunately for him, like you said, kind of has to sit back, watch as things are happening. The damage he does get out there helps get some kills, but not enough to secure a lot. It all falls apart around that. I think it was a Primal Fury, and it wasn't a whole ton that goes in favor. And maybe that's not going to be enough just for the Leviathans win. Then they get the Pyromancer, and that starts causing some trouble. And then they overextend, the Titans do, on left, and all of a sudden it feels like everything's just falling into the lap of the Leviathans.
If I'm a Leviathans fan, and the players themselves, of course, I'm very excited about the way the last few minutes of that game went. The clean, concise call. Think about it. You get a kill on a SOT, immediately to Fire Giant, immediately to Tier 2 tower and mid, and then the team was on the same page from then on out. The Titan took a little while to burn down, but it did burn down. Leviathans take game 1 of this best of 5. Game number 2 is coming up next.
everybody, and welcome back. Game number 1 started off real nice and strong there for the Tartarus Titans, but at the end of the day, it's the Leviathans who come out on top at the midpoint of the game. Was really where we really saw a lot of turning point out here at Trulli. Some strong play out of the Titans. They were able to get those early kills, get those early leads in that mid and jungle, but then when it came around to the objectives, this is where we always talk about the macro play out of Leviathans. A couple of objectives slipped their way, even an objective steal out here, and Leviathans are able to climb themselves back in and take game 1.
Yeah, this was very reminiscent of what we used to see the Leviathans play like last season, not quite towards the end, but towards the middle they would, maybe lose, fall a little bit behind in the early game, not sort of get, any crazy deficit, but be a little bit behind, maybe drop some kills here and there, but then that late game team fight, we know that's where they were able to come online. Paul even found that sweet double kill, like within a minute you came in, I remember you were like, how's Paul level 5? And I was like, well, he got a double kill and it's looking good, but after that it seemed to just be those late game team fights that the Leviathans really excel at.
I mean, I took a little lap around the office to go find somebody to talk to, and then I stroll back in on the TV. I look up, it's 2.5 minutes, and Paul is level 5 at that point. So while I may have missed the initial double kill out of him, never really got a massive lead out here for the Titans. Paul sure was able to get a small lead earlier on, but Panatom never fell behind in this jungle. He was maintaining, at bare minimum, an equal level to layers throughout the majority of this game here. But then we get to these late game team fights, and what a clip shot there by Shinto. 2-shot Shinto all by himself.
Oh yeah, Shinto was being able to do a crazy damage on this soft pick. Nice to finally see it back. I feel like we've seen, this rise of these sort of tanky style mages. Finally seeing another just artillery high damage mage. It's been a while since we've seen this Thoth, ever since like the Zeus and the E sets have been coming back. But obviously Thoth very strong right now with the double flat pen meta, as I've harped on a few times right now. Shinto is able to do some crazy things on this pick.
Panatom really getting to have a field day on this dodgy. 5-4-4. So maybe not reflected so much into the kills, but so many targets that he was able to pull back with that ultimate between Nemesis, Zeus, and Atlas, 3 primary targets that would have needed beads, but we see that Aurora never picked those up. So anytime that Panatom was in these fights, it was the easiest call for him to just pop that Palau and jump himself up there. Top of the damage charts does go to Shinto, at least for his team, and actually in the game out here, and top of the GPM chart. We always like to joke hard about it, but I mean, this guy's got 617, he's 20 or more GPM over everybody else just on his team out here. And it just goes to show that even though you put this guy down at the beginning, remember you got double killed at the start of the game, and he still comes out on top.
Yeah, it just seems like the Leviathans really know how to farm this map efficiently. Even if they might drop a kill here or there, they're getting every single bit of neutral farm, invades when they can, making sure to get their laners ahead, obviously. Shinto, one of the ones that we harp on a lot, where he's able to just make sure he's staying ahead, or if at the very least even, but usually he's pretty far ahead. So the Leviathans, again, even though the kills were not in their favor, they were still always even or ahead of the Titans, which takes a lot. It takes a lot to make sure that that's happening.
And now we jump into picks and bans for game number 2 between the Titans and the Leviathans, and already we see our first adjustment in those bans, at least on the side of the Titans. They'll take Eset off the table, not wanting to give that one back over to Rongyu, which that ended up being a 3rd pick for this team. The Dodgy now also banned was a 2nd pick out of Leviathans going through here. So now that these gods are taken away, what does that now leave open here for the Leviathans or even the Titans to pick, Trelly?
Yeah, this Dodgy was very oppressive. Obviously, it matched up pretty well into the Titans draft, so taking that away makes sense. Now, it really depends on what the Leviathans want to do. Obviously, they are 2nd pick, so if they thought, maybe the Atlas was the reason they had a little bit of an early lead, something like that, they could take that away. But I feel like at this point, they probably would just want to run it back. I mean, they played extremely well, even though losing the early game, so I think they're probably pretty confident in just running back the same sort of bans here. At the very least, they're going to be happy with whatever they get, I think, because when you're coming off the first game win like that, even when you were behind, you have all the cards.
It kind of does feel almost reminiscent of the first game of Worlds, too, where the Titans pull out to a very early lead, and then just the objective and team fight play after by the Leviathans nets them that game 1 victory. We do see a ban of the Atlas here. One of the first times we're actually seeing this god now taken away after his 100% win rate streak was lost here just in that previous game. The Leviathans just don't want to deal with it here, so they'll ban that one out. Titans pick up Zeus, and Leviathans will respond with the Camazotz and the Gilgamesh that were now both left open.
Yeah, this time you got Phantom on Gilgamesh, which I will say, Paul had a great game 1. found very early success on the Zeus, and then the Daji was just a little bit too much. So they said, hey, take away the Daji, and then I'll just pick Zeus again. But now you're leaving open this Gilgamesh, which can also make Zeus's day very rough. Obviously, Zeus, no real way to outplay the drop kick. If Gilgamesh gets on top of Zeus, it's going to be rough. But I see what the thought process is, because now you have this Kepriel. You have Scarab's Blessing. Now if Paul can get a crazy amount of damage off, get that revive, come back into the fight, that could be a great play. So I like what the Titans have already done here with their draft. They've said, we know what went wrong, and now we're going to get SOT on this Osiris. I mean, I know it could go to layers, but if you guys have seen SOT play this Osiris, we know exactly where this pick is going.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't watch Worlds and see what Osiris was doing up against the Dragons on this god, you might want to go back and rewatch that after this set here. Khepri Osiris, Khepri, a very standard Aurora god. When I think of Aurora, this is like one of the 3 gods that come to mind with him, between that and the Ganesh being the next one right immediately after that one. So getting a nice defensive but also fairly offensive style guardian in that Khepri. Then you throw the Osiris as we talk about. But that just leaves open Umoja for the side of the Leviathans, one of Wrong U's best picks bar none.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of solid picks for the Leviathans on this roster. Obviously, Arcor had a very standout performance on the Camazotz, as we've harped on many, many times. I know I have to keep running back to that phrase, but it's true. We keep talking about it, and there's a reason. It's because Arcor was crazy on this Camazotz. They're giving it to him again. The Gilgamesh, same sort of deal, and obviously this Umoja pick from Rangu, he just looks insane on it. The Riptides are always on point. The River's Rebuke to peel and engage and trap. Just so many different options here, so they are going to be going into the second wave of bans. Taking away that Serket, still a smart play. If you have the Gilgamesh and the Camazotz, it means you're not going to be using that Serket yourself, so just get rid of that at this point. And then the Medusa, a little dual lane pressure.
Yeah, take some of that dual lane out, hit the jungle there on the side of Leviathans, and then those mid laners you were talking about, especially 2 pivotal Paul picks here. We always talk about you can't really ban out Paul. I mean, we've seen 6-7 bans / picks dedicated to getting Paul off of a comfort god, and yet he always still manages to find a way. But taking away 2 of his better ones out here with that Morrigan and Tiamat. And now it's Cernanos on the side of Leviathans. We saw a lot of a rise up of this god during the SPL qualifiers and the SEC qualifiers. This god was very popular. Now we'll see it again here. This time piloted by Zapman on the Leviathans.
Yeah, Zapman seems to like this pick a lot. I think it just, into this Khepri specifically, it's going to be pretty annoying. Obviously, Bramblebass now does have a cripple on it. It was the buff that he got a little bit ago, so now the Sternos does have a little bit of extra utility in his kit. And Khepri, really the only one shut down by it. I guess now they did draft the Shibalunke, so that could also be a little bit annoying for him. But I think Zap just feels really confident on this pick. It's got a lot of damage. You have some self-peel if you do want to drop the ult at your feet, things like that. And I have no qualms with putting Shinto back on this Thoth, so I'm not even going to touch on that one. We saw what he just did last game. Do I even have to explain to you why this is good?
Yeah, no reason why you don't just put him back on Thoth. And then the other 2 alongside that Shibalunke is a Loki, and this is something that Layers has played quite a bit in the past and has found a lot of success on. The Shibalunke also did just receive a recent buff onto the cooldown of his poison darts, those going down from a flat 16 seconds, I believe it was, at all ranks, now scaling down from 16 to 14. So it kind of changes up a little bit of the dynamic of that duo as to what the level priority is. Most people do get that branching bola first just because it's nice and easy clear. With Death's Toll, you basically just get free enhanced autos the entire time through it. But now with some of these changes to the poison darts, gives them some more options when it comes to that laning phase.
Yeah, Xpal's got a few different leveling orders he can go. Obviously, if you do want to max that branching bull, that first ability, you are going to be giving away a little bit of mana the more points you put into it. But the poison dart's getting the buff. I think maybe Cyclone will go towards that now because it's going to be off cooldown a little bit earlier. It's great poke. The slow helps for trading in the boxing matchup as well. So I actually do like the Shibalunke pick. For a while, he was meta just for the ult, right? You could just say, hey, I'm seeing some fighting over there. I'm just going to pop the ult, turn the lights off for everyone, and my team is going to get a crazy big advantage. At this point, it's good to see him back now. Hopefully, this small buff is just enough to make him, feel good in this lane. But specifically, I'm worried about the Thoth survivability into Loki. Layers is going to be able to close that gap very easily with Assassinate. It's a very long range, essentially leap into a cripple stun. So that's going to be very difficult for a Thoth to deal with. Obviously, no, you're going to have to relic pretty much every time unless Rangu is going to be there with the peel, which I have a feeling he's going to be there with the peel. Every time I've seen Ronnie, he's always making sure that his carries are alive. He's that sort of support that can be the sacrificial lamb if needed. Say, hey, you guys go on, get your farm, I'll stand here and peel for you, that sort of thing. So I think Shinto's going to be just fine.
Out of curiosity, Charlie, when you're facing off against these gods with these global ults that affect every, Chernobog, Nuwa, and Xbalanque, are you the person who calls out that the ultimate is down? Or are you the person when X-Ball ults, you go, hey guys, I can't see anything, I think Xbalanque just ulted? Or are you the guy who's sitting there, like most of my teammates, rolling their eyes like, dude, really, we all know?
Yeah, I remember specifically I was playing in a Smite Prime tournament, and I just said, guys, I can't see. And they all went, yeah, we know. it's just one of those things where when the lights go off, Xbalanque, some players want to just keep going and act like nothing happened, and then some want to say, hey, let's back up until we can see again. It's just a comms diff, I would say.
Well, a very interesting draft here out of the Titans in game number 2. Can they bring a win? We'll find out.
Either the Leviathans put us on set point, or the Titans will send us on to at least a game 4. Or game number 2 of this best of 5. The Leviathans turn around a game 1 early deficit, Gore, and some cool, common, collected Smite gameplay from the Leviathans in game 1 help turn that around. Tartarus Titans change up a lot about their draft, but keep one thing the same, and that's Paul on this Zeus, and I think the Zeus was a shining point for that Titans draft.
And honestly, yeah, like you said, it did a lot of damage. It did well early on, and it kind of puts Shinto into this really, I want to say, awkward spot, right? When you're up against Zeus based on the damage and based on how he played last time around, specifically with the Raven on the other side, well, you want something like an Aegis to try and get away from some of that damage. Granted, I don't think we saw him use it too often pre-level 12, so I don't know how badly he needed it. This time around, there's a lot more CC on the other side, so you need those beads. You can see he's already swapped over into that, and I think that's going to make things a lot more interesting because now with the Loki there, again, can get aggressive pretty early on, but has a really easy close gap, can chase down this Thoth no problem, as well as Khepri, who has a lot of CC that he can bring, as well as enabling someone like this Loki or the Osiris later on in the game to dive a lot deeper because they have that res. It becomes a lot bigger threat onto this.
Whoa, Zapman dashes in. Level 2 for Zap and Wrong. Still level 1 for Aurora and Cyclone Spin. Branching Bola is actually helping out. Trade onto Zap on the back end of that fight just a little bit. Don't get to see this dual lane matchup like ever, Gore. Much less the CERN, much less the X-Ball, like even with a meta pick on the other side. But the two of them against one another. I don't know if we saw it at all last year, maybe not the year before.
Kernanos, we've gotten to see this week, but only because Zap played it a little bit. In fact, he even got it banned against him because he played it pretty well. Cyclone Spin, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit, did just straight up tweet out a poll saying what god, and he played the one that won. Yeah, and so he put like a 10-minute timer on it, and he played the one that won.
Your core is low, but Sot realizes he doesn't have any buttons left. And low solo laners doesn't always equal a kill, though there is a Loki on the right side of the map. Yarkor will be able to sustain up just fine on the back end of this fight. That is a glimpse behind the curtain. All right, so depending on what happens here in game 2.
I think his options were Jingwei, Heimdall, Xbalanque, and I'm blanking on number 4.
Regardless of who number 4 was, I'm glad that X-Ball won.
Yeah,
it's a fun pick to watch. He'll try to land some autos on Zapman, ends up sending more damage over Wrong Yu's way. You have to imagine that the pressure will be flowing for the Leviathans in this lane, Gore, just because Wrong Yu on Yamoja is so threatening. But I think Aurora on Khepri is also a sneaky, very good pairing. I really like Aurora on this style of pick.
And again, it enables so much of what this team could want. Aurora can be aggressive because he can go in. He has a good pull. He has a good route. And you had mentioned it, but during the SCC play-ins, in qualifiers, we saw a Khepri steal something with the 2. Not a lot of damage off of that. It's like 19, I think. It was the total that it had ticked it over, but sometimes that's all you need. And then, of course, having the res. All of a sudden, Loki, Osiris can dive a little bit deeper. Cyclone and Paul can feel a lot safer against any dive. I mean, there's a Kamazotz, there's a Gilgamesh, and a Yamoja on the other side. You need some safety nets, and that's what this Khepri is. So I think it enables a lot of the Titans' play style throughout the game. Once he hits level 5, he's going to be a really big deal and a thorn in the side of the Leviathans for a majority of this game.
Zapman is a thorn in the side the moment he levels up that ability.
Yeah.
Oh, is it a bramble patch, technically?
It's brambles. What brambles is like thorns?
A type of thorn.
Brambles is thorns.
That's English. That's a sentence.
That goes on a T-shirt. Brambles is thorns.
You would wear a shirt I would wear a shirt that says Brambles is thorns.
Yeah.
You would make that. You're considering going to make it. I can tell you. That would be a funny shirt.
On broad
it's a very niche shirt. Yes. Very niche, but a shirt that I think both of us would wear.
I think literally no one listening finds it as amusing as we do.
No, and you know what, Gore? I'm doing it for you. You know what I mean? It's you and I here amusing ourselves. That's what's really important. That's what really matters. Slight early gold lead, and I say very slight for the Tartarus Titans, 400 or 500 gold or so, about equivalent to a first blood. That hasn't rolled in just yet. Panatom has effectively been out farming layers, level 5 for the Gilgamesh, layers just a bit behind. So I think that's where the XP difference lies, 500 or so experience lead that the Leviathans have, largely out of the jungle for Panatom. It goes back, completes his Jotun's Wrath. Now maybe start to see him get a little bit more active. Has Blink, has Winds of Shamash. Maybe has a good target in the mid lane in Paul, if he's able to put some pressure on the
Yeah, I mean, you land the drop kick super early. Like, even if Paul has the wherewithal to hit the beads first, you're still then going to be able to drop the slow, or vice versa. Drop the slow, get the beads, get the drop kick, things like that. So it creates, again, just a lot of troublesome scenarios that the Titans are going to have to think their way out of.
And engage from Aurora, and guess who's here? It's Panatom. Blink in. Winds of Shamash to separate the fight, and Cyclone Spin has to head out. River's Rebuke nearly perfect from Rongyu, but the drop kick is great. Ult out from layers. Panatom, he's on the hunt for his second kill of the game. He'll find it. Double kill for the Leviathan's jungle.
Just to start things off, I mean, a good rotation and then, of course, a good counter engagement. You get rid of Aurora, you isolate him. Cyclone kind of recognizes, I don't want to be here, gets out of there as quick as possible. Unfortunately for Layers, he was trying to engage, help, and, well, you just end up in the wrong spot sometimes. Really good call from Panatom, good stun that lands onto Layers, and, of course, a good chase down to be able to follow up his ult. And that's an uncomfortable start. He was already starting to get ahead of Layers. You had highlighted that as we got into that fight. Now he's definitely ahead of Layers with the first blood bounty plus 2 kills. So he's going to be able to farm up. Should hit 7 here, yeah, before Layers even hits 6. And that's going to really rock the world of the Titans. I think he can start putting pressure, not really onto right. That's Osiris. You can show up over there. You can maybe mess around, but not have a lot to do. But the Zeus, I feel like Paul's about to be in trouble.
You're right. Paul looks like going for a similar build to last time, Divine Ruin. And then it was Mantle of Discord and then Obshard for Paul last game. In the early makings of a Mantle, maybe again here for Paul. And again, if the dive is coming from Panatom and Yarkor, I think the Mantle could do some good for Paul if that ends up being the direction that build goes. Layers on this low-key gore, despite the early death and despite being a little bit behind as far as experience goes, an opportunity to be active on the map as well. And Loki was a pick that was very popular for a little while last year and slowed down just a bit. But I still think I really enjoy this style of play. Abduct into detonate. And that's a nice kill for the Tartarus Titans to find Wrong used a bit overextended. Lights go out. Cyclone Spin just over in lane. Not much more, but how about this rotation from SOT? Yarkor is on the right side of the map, still farming things up. Lord of the Afterlife gets used. Tether for the stun onto Panatom, who will sidestep a lot. You can't sidestep that much. Paul adds another double kill for the Titans mid.
But he bought time. Look, Hardcore's made his way over here. Zap's making a pincer maneuver. They're going to try to cut him off.
This is a lot of damage into the Tartarus Titans, and they are trying to retreat. Zapman drops his ultimate, and Paul is dropped in reply. Bat Out of Hell is going to swoop on in, but Aurora dashes out. Getting one feels all right there for the
with Layers coming back, I was curious. I was like, man, that's a guaranteed kill. What are you going to do?
What is happening?
No, Zap. Trying to run away, and wow, actually gets out of there. I didn't think that one was going to happen, but that's twice. I mean, that's 2 games in a row. Narrow escapes for Zapman. So maybe he's got a new passive this year instead of going 0-5 every single. No, he went 0-5 earlier this week. Never mind. We'll figure it out as the season goes on if anything's changed.
And they won that
for
game,
him.
to be clear. As a matter of fact, if there's a game where Zapman's 0-5, I almost think their chances of winning somehow
it
go
goes up.
Right.
Yeah.
Somehow it's an increased chance for the Leviathans to win that game.
Good
Nice stun out of Rogyu. Drop kick in. Panatom is on a warpath.
Double stun.
3 kills out of the Gilgamesh. Could be 4 around the corner. Rongyu tanking up the tower. And Panatom has a double kill. 4 kills out of the Leviathans 5.
Rongyu and Zap have no health and nothing to worry about. I mean, no one's over here. Loki is nowhere to be seen because he's now been put down. You've got Paul who's hanging out in mid. Osiris makes a great rotation earlier, but isn't going to be here for this one. So yeah, Zap, like, free permission to do one more wave, except knows that he's not going to die. It feels pretty solid. And I think that's good kills to get. Not only now is Aurora 2 levels down on Rongyu, and Rongyu's Yamoja is a conversation in and of itself, but you're putting Cyclone Spin behind, and I think we had talked about in the desk and mentioned Layers' capabilities of sticking to Shinto. It's maybe not the best, but Cyclone can do a really good job of it as well. I mean, Thoth Death gets you so far, but Xbalanque literally extends his auto attack range.
Ult in from Lair. Shinto uses the beads. And there's a lot of damage returned onto Lair's Final Judgment. Gets canceled because Shinto doesn't need it. Killing spree for the Leviathans jungler. 5-1 now is Panatom, and this Gilgamesh is swinging. It's pretty far into the build. Got a couple half-completed items, and another kill here will help him out in finishing off some of that itemization. Aurora used the Scarab's Blessing. This time it pays off. Final Judgment still there for Shinto. Can't use it, though, because he's being dove on by SOT. Aurora ends up dying anyway. And now SOT is going to have to watch the Leviathans back off.
I think just good play all around. I mean, Paul has a good Lightning Storm, and if you're watching that, you're wondering, what is it? It's just a zone. You can't sit on top of this Khepri if that damage is pouring in. And it forces Hardcore, Shinto, and Panatom and Rongyu to all take a different pathing around the objective. Unfortunately, it doesn't cover a lot of the lane, so they just kind of go around the circle, wait for Aurora to come out, and then kill him then. I think it's a good call from them, but I think maybe a slow revival as well as a slow disengage from Aurora still lends the Leviathans another kill.
Oof.
You had mentioned it, SOT's rotating in, but it's not having the same impact so far from what we've gotten out of Hardcore's rotations. And also, Panatom's just nuts at Gilgamesh. He's 5-1-1, and he's playing really well. He's getting 6 stuns, good positioning, good ults, good engages, disengages, all of the things that you would want out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a hefty majority of what the Leviathans are doing right now.
Feels like the Leviathans can do pretty much anything on the map. Paul is in the River's Rebuke, and look at the damage from Shinto. Final Judgment doesn't connect. Aurora doesn't have Scarab's Blessing. Yeah, Paul, he'll die on the end of this fight. Dropkick in from Panatom.
Good
body
blocks.
box. They're perfect, but Aurora tanky enough to dash away. Slow is in from Winds of Shamash. Shinto dashes forward and misses the vital bit of damage, but another death onto Paul. 2-2 now. Mantle of Discord just gets completed, so that'll help out with some of the dive. Feels like the Game 2 lead here brought to you for free by Panatom.
Yeah, this is very similar to a conversation we were having, I want to say, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago, where it's just, if you're going to try to beat them, the realistic thing is don't let blank go 5-0 or 5-1. At the time, it was a Circat that went 5-0. I think it was Panatom. And, well, guess what? He's 5-1. He is essentially guiding you immediately into a mid game where you're going to be comfortable and very, ease of objectives. You're not going to have to worry too much. You've got Rongyu on one of his best gods, maybe one of the best emojis in the world. And you've got Hardcore on something that he literally got an MVP performance for. Same thing here. I think Panatom's Gilgamesh, everything on the Leviathans feels very comfortable from what we've seen out of them over the years and that we've been watching them play, but even more specifically during this Worlds run where they took everything. And I feel like this is just a perfect example of why they played so well there. I mean, these gods just fit their style.
They do. It's a 2 or 3 level lead, Gore, effectively all over the map right now. 2 in the jungle, 2 in mid, 3 in support, 2 in ADC. It's only solo that is equal at this point. That's no surprise. The right side of the map tends to be left a little bit further alone, a little bit more alone than the rest of the map is. And so SOT, the closest to even with his counterpart, is even, but now look at Yarkor's build here. It's gone Blackthorn into Transcendence, so that'll stack up. And Transit has really started to cycle back in as far as popularity goes, Score, and a lot of soul laners, especially the assassin-y types, have enjoyed this pick. And so Yarkor is going to start to swing here in a little bit. I was wondering if we would fully commit. And Aurora says no, and the Leviathans back off.
Which I'm kind of surprised about.
And they have such a lead over here on left.
Not only the lead, but even with the Titans, there's not a lot of objectives secure for them. With Final Judgment, you would think, okay, yeah, free Gold Fury, whatever. It did take them a little while to burn it down, and now they can get aggressive onto Cyclone.
Cyclone spin, Riptided back in, dashes out of Zapman's ultimate, but the auto attacks find their way home nonetheless. Sot is rotating back over from solo lane. River's Rebuke saved, but how about that? Double Lord of the Afterlife onto the dual lane of the Leviathans. Aurora has rotated in. He's got the abduct now. Zapman being whittled away by Sot as Layers finds a second win in this fight for the Tartarus Titans. Zapman, the first casualty, but here comes Shinto. Final Judgment right down Main Street, but it goes just wide of hitting any meaningful targets, and Shinto doesn't need it. He's got a double kill anyway, a triple around the corner, but Panatom nabs it. Everyone but Paul on the Titans is dead.
All right, I gotta highlight something good from the Titans first, and that is Osiris passive getting to play into that. He walks right through that emotion wall and continues. That's exactly what that yes was. It's just exciting to see that, right? It's one small thing. You don't get to see it as often as you'd like. A lot of the time, Lord of the Afterlife gets used, but whenever you have, again, all of those body parts missing, you can walk through the walls, and that's what lets him stick to Zap. Otherwise, that's a free kill onto Sot, and things probably actually fall apart there. So maybe even better for the Leviathans that the chase continues, and Zapman gets killed off. Unfortunately, he falls, but then they get a massive 4-man swing. You had mentioned it, Paul was nowhere to be seen.
No.
Cyclone's just getting dove, and I feel like this Xbalanque, as much damage as he can do, isn't getting what he wants.
Yarkor has a lot of damage, but he's taking a lot of damage. Scarab's Blessing. This one's onto the wrong target. A rare miss from Aurora, as SOT will take it for the shielding. Yarkor ends up dying in the back end, so a 1-for-1 trade sometimes favors the losing team, depending on who it is that dies off. Up, down for Panatom, as Sot adds another double kill for the Osiris.
Look, I'm starting to have flashbacks. I don't want double kills for Sot on Osiris. He's going to continue getting aggressive. He could try to stick to Shinto, but I like this. Get the damage out where you can and control this team. They've lost 2.
Watch out for
This
Paul.
is a big opening.
Paul is around to the left side now. Zapman, in the meantime, has pushed out the left side of this map. Good Rivers
Good
rebuke
walls.
from Wrong You. Hey, Gore, you nearly got it a little bit again there. As SOT in and out of the ultimate from Wrong You. And I think
now he could.
Right, now he could. Good damage control from the Leviathans to only lose a couple of members on the back end of that fight. And also, good attempt at a momentum shift for the Tartarus Titans, realizing that they had an opening there on right, realizing there's an opening here in mid. Not enough damage out of Paul. Not enough damage, or mana rather, from Shinto to really start up another fight.
I like where Zapman's mind was at. Again, if you're not going to be able to rotate over and get anything crazy to happen, then just farm up, do what you can. I mean, he's got 3 levels on Cyclone right now. Same thing for Wrong You over Aurora. So impressive farming nonetheless. That double kill for Solo or Troll, though, does end up coming back to bite them just a little bit, right? Panatom slows down a little bit, goes from, what was it, 8-1 to 8-2. Maybe not the worst case scenario for him. But realistically, you give some experience over to Solo or Troll. We know this is a really strong pick for him, and now he's slightly ahead, about half a level ahead of Hardcore here. If he gets another kill, it might be even more.
Wow, Yark has bat out of hell, but how about the damage that Sot can do? Lord of the Afterlife already used, so no chase down. But there is pressure. And again, Gore, it's this right side of the map for the Tartarus Titans that has been even all game long. Hasn't received many eyes on it. All eyes have been on mid and left side of this map. Leviathans finally take down the Gold Fear. I thought it was something they could have done a couple minutes ago, but wanted to wait to get some more of those power items online, power spike items online. And it looks like a trade back here. Tartarus Titans eyeing the Pyromancer. Or not.
Be careful. The final judgment wasn't used. They wouldn't know that. They're just going to try to kill Shinto off the old-fashioned way anyway.
Good dodges from Shinto. Avoids the root. Panatom, what happened to his health bar? Layers was there, and Paul has the last bit of damage, so now 8-3 is Panatom, the perfect target to kill off first if you're the Tartarus Titans. Layers is low, Aurora is low as well, but you'll take a kill and you'll take a Pyromancer here if you're the Titans. And Wrong, you will not steal it away.
Which is good for the, at this point, any scraps you can pick up if you're the Titans are going to be beneficial for you. Pyromancer isn't worth like a ton in the grand scheme, but it's very low risk in the the event that you do end up losing it, so you're not losing too much. But it's great in a scenario like this because you at least take a chunk from what the Leviathans have. You got that tier 1 on right as well. I think map state's very important for the Titans right now because those tier 2s could really help even up some of the gold lead with a lot of these neutral objectives going towards the Leviathans. If you can get an open push for the Titans, all of a sudden you're going to have at least some like gold, anything going into your coffers, right? So you can start to alleviate some of the pressure of like tier 2s, tier 3s versus the tier 1s that they're building up, or sometimes I think in some cases we're probably going to see like a full tier 3 item up over whatever the Titans have. But you have to get into a position where you can actually do that.
Paul used the beads, avoids the drop kick. Watch out for the mantle stun on the back end of this fight. There's the Scarab's Blessing in there as well. Paul will walk on out thanks to Aurora's help. But now Aurora doesn't have it for himself. He's just going to get run down. 9-3 is Panatom. I want to keep talking about...
Okay.
Well, we're not going to be able to talk about it. I do want to see if Zapman and Cyclone end up 1v1ing. I was disappointed in the lack of true 1v1s that we had between Uller and Onher in game 1. I think
agree.
Cyclone's smart not to take a fight here, though the items are the same at the moment. Level discrepancy puts Zapman maybe a little bit ahead of that. I don't know how much we're talking about the... All right, remember you were walking around the office, and I'll hold this thought as a fight breaks out in the mid lane. Sot melted down by Shinto. Final judgment! No, just wide. of SOT. Panatom tanking up a lot of this damage underneath the tier 1 tower. Double stun from Layers, but he has sent himself to death. But Cyclone Spin rotates over from the duo lane, finds some good damage on the Panatom, and is able to complete the first kill. But again, he will trade out his life, and 3 members of the Titans are all that's left.
Look, Sot's low, Aurora's low, doesn't have the res yet, and this is great damage from Thought. They can keep moving forward.
Oh my god, Shinto is doing so much. Zatman rotates into the fight. And
No way,
he's got
Shinto
a double
dashed
kill. Shinto
forward?
dashes in. He's got high hopes for how that one's going to turn out. Now everyone on the Tartarus Titans, plus a sliver of HP on SOT, all gone from this map. Zatman can walk forward. I would be hard-pressed to see an end here with how strong Sot is and how long it's taking even this mid lane Phoenix go down. Respawn still pretty close as well, Core. There's a bit of a slap fight underneath the mid lane. Phoenix happens, but how about this play from SOT? Jumps in, gets the kill on the wrong you. Zatman is overstayed as well. Double kill for SOT, and now it's the R-Core trying to turn back one.
And look, he's dancing in the blood pool. He's getting a little bit of healing here with Layers as low as he is. He has to be careful.
There's
Matter
so many
to hell,
blood pools.
It's still a long way away.
Wow, trade back for the Tartarus Titans. Too much for the Leviathans. You know, if you're in the Leviathans booth right now, they realize they stuck around
Yeah,
just
look
a
at that
little bit
Phoenix.
too long.
It's still alive.
Yep, still there. Couldn't even kill it off. And that's how strong SOT is, Score. I mean, at 5-1-5, this Osiris is a massive threat.
Yes.
Shinto is on the map, though. Final Judgment, a steal potential as the Titans pull FG.
You have to watch where he is, though. He's just now getting out of base. Only person around here is Panatom. That's at half health. He's got vision, at least a little bit, and he's got a leap. He's got a lot of good engages and ways in.
It's going to have to be Panatom. Shinto's not in range. Winds of Shabash does not confirm. And the Tartarus Titans will take down the FG, and that is just an overextension around the Phoenix. And the Leviathans fumble just a bit here, Gore. The gold gap is closed up to 3,000. Plus, you consider the gold value of a Fire Giant buff. The Tartarus Titans have fought their way back into Game 2.
Goes back to the conversation about map state. There's 5 towers still standing on the side of Leviathans. I expect that to change heavily through this Fire Giant. The question of team fights is going to come up just because the Titans have had, a couple go their way, but most of those have felt like they were Leviathans overextensions as opposed to Titans wins off of those fights. I think Aurora has really good setup again with the way Sot's playing 5-1-5 you had highlighted earlier. It's kind of nuts, so I think he's going to be able to honestly manifest opportunities unless he gets caught out.
Has to use Lord of the Afterlife to jump on out of this fight. Oni Fury, you'd think go quietly to the Leviathans now. That's a big engage tool, but again, for wrong you now, we're committing the River's Rebuke onto the Oni Fury. Maybe getting the vibe that the Leviathans aren't going to be doing much fighting over the next couple of minutes. Let's use that ultimate in a meaningful way and just confirm that the Titans won't be able to get a Fire Giant push as well as an Oni Fury push.
And you're not kidding when you say a couple of minutes. 140-second cooldown timer on that thing, and you feel it, man. Like it takes a while to feel those walls come back up. Good news is you still got Riptide, you still got your Moonbeam, to be able to get the stuns. Bubbles surprisingly has been doing damage. I think that he got his kill from a bubble bounce earlier, so realistically he's not like out of the game. But that is a huge team fight ultimate that's going to be missing. Plus, it's put them in a good position. I mean, look, all these minions are going to help alleviate any pressure the Titans might be able to accrue in lane. And it's been 2 minutes with a Fire Giant buff, and the Leviathans are the ones that have been making the plays that are aggressive. The Leviathans are the ones that are still moving forward, despite the fact that, admittedly, this Fire Giant should alleviate the stress of the gold that the Leviathans have that's still in the lead.
Well, the good news is, Gore, this is when we have our beautiful power play graphic in the top left, and so XP has gone down, and this next one is going to be pretty telling, especially with the tower that just falls as well. Yeah, so you've lost 2.5k gold lead since you grabbed the Fire Giant. I was assuming this would be a big turnaround moment for the Tartarus Titans, but the Leviathans have been able to play effectively around the Fire Giant, and the Titans haven't been able to make great use of it. I think you need to see a little bit more out of Layers down the stretch here. You reach level 20. You're starting to get close to full build. You're 0-6 up to this point here this game, Gore. Pretty far down the damage charts on this Loki as well. And so one of the big differences is just how much damage Panatom's been able to do that Layers hasn't been able to match. So if this Loki is able to kind of blow up some of those priority targets, Gore, maybe another avenue in for the Titans.
Honestly, I'm surprised. Just looking down at the levels that Paul hasn't hit 20 yet, really, is the one that stands out. Last one out of all of the main damage dealers, the people who hit 20 first, pretty much Sans supports. Here's the conversation that is going to hit it. Hardcore took a little while to get there as well. He just ticked over to 20. which feels like it's going to be a little bit of a big deal for them. Just having that extra damage, now he has that last point in his ult, so he should feel pretty good. But they did get a lot of items on those backs, right? The gold, even though it went more in favor of the Leviathans, still has accrued for the Leviathans here. So you've got your Soul Reaver, you've got your shield there for layers, and so they should be able to get a little bit more aggressive. That shield specifically should allow layers to get in, and either he's going to 100-0 somebody or he's just going to die instantly, but either way, as long as he
Either
can
way,
get
it's
a
going to
kill,
be flashy.
at this point, like even a 1-for-1 trade for him is still worthwhile.
Yeah, unfortunately for layers, whether you're trying to kill off Shinto or kill off Zapman, usually the targets of this Loki, you're going to have an Aegis to work through. You're going to have a heap of damage to work through as well. And Shinto and Zap are all right. You can beads off the stun from layers and then sort of self-disengage with some of the mobility in both of those kits. So life is just not easy for layers here in Game 2. You're still leaning a lot on SOT. Fire Giant's going to respawn here, Gore, in about 45 seconds. And the Titans, after a miraculous Phoenix defense where the Phoenix didn't even die, had a relatively easy Fire Giant pull. Panatom made it interesting, but that was a simple call. Given how slow the push was with that Fire Giant, I wonder what the Titans' call is as far as defending this next one in 30 seconds.
Well, it comes back to the conversation about Secure, right? When I see River's Rebuke plus Final Judgment, it seems like a very easy Fire Giant for the Leviathans to set up and try to burn down faster than the Titans will be able to. Lightning Storm does create a huge chasm in terms of DPS that can be dropped on there. And so maybe Paul is the secret here for the Titans.
That's so often the case, isn't it? Paul being the secret for his team. That usually is.
It's not much of a secret.
It's not a secret anymore, is it? Paul, a playmaking player. You know what? I don't often give myself credit.
Yeah.
But I liked the big players make big plays in big games or something like that during the Worlds documentary we looked back on after Paul had made a pretty big play. And so now's a big moment for Paul. Maybe make a play around this Fire Giant on the Zeus. You have the ability with this style of pick as the Fire Giant pulled out just a bit by the Tartarus Titans. The rest of the Leviathans, though, they show some face here, Gore. And just the way the teams are kind of maneuvering right now. Feel a little bit more aggressive if you're the Leviathans.
Yeah, realistically, you are looking at relics. Everything's going to be up. Ults that are going to be up. Panatom's positioning, things like that, are going to make a big difference. Forcing beads out of Paul for the dropkick would be a big deal. Dropping Woods of Shamash, forcing like Aegis out of either Paul or Cyclone. Things that seem small, maybe, well, not even small. They seem massive, right? If you pick them up, mean even more if they're able to isolate specifically Paul because of what he's been providing. You can't forget about Cyclone. I mean, that's going to be a sneaky amount of damage.
Whoa, Panatom has found the backline. Sod is already down to half HP as well, so you are not going to have mirrored dives here in this fight. Yarkor realizes that the Loki is gone. TKO'd from this fight. Need to worry about him no further. Jump out from Panatom, but a jump back in from SOT, who is all alone here. Lots of damage connecting onto the Osiris on his way out. A root from Zapman there as well. Couple ultimates burned for each team.
Yeah, 3 down, but again, beads, gone for layers, gone for Paul. You burn them off of Panatom and Shinto, Panatom and Hardcore, which is going to be nice. But Shinto and Zap feel safe. They've got their beads, they've got their Aegis, all like everything that they could possibly want is still going for them. Phantom Shell is going to be gone for Aurora. And so now all of a sudden it becomes a lot more easy for Wrong U to box people in. It becomes easy for the Leviathans to engage and isolate the Titans.
Wrong U and the rest of the Leviathans see
There
that the Fire Giant has been pulled. River's Rebuke is up, and look at it, it's funneled 3 members of the Titans perfectly into damage range of the rest of the Leviathans. A Mantle Stun helping out on the right side of this fight as Cyclone Spin jumped on.
Good res.
Scarab's Blessing brings Cyclone Spin right back into the backline, but look at Shinto. Half of his health is missing, but shrugs it off, finds the first kill in this engagement. Panatom dueling it out. Big drop kick sends the Tartarus Titans all the way back to the wall. Paul does find the Mantle Stun this time. Alternate timeline jumped on. Panatom and the Leviathans win a massive fight.
And that honestly might just be it. I mean, Solar Troll, look, he put up some miracle plays earlier. He's still 5-1-5. This one's going to be big. It's a lot later in the game. About 8 minutes have passed since the last time he tried to defend this Phoenix. A lot more work is cut out for him.
Yeah, and he doesn't have layers this time, doesn't have a teammate for 25 seconds. The Tartarus Titans mount a comeback earlier on in this game under the same exact Phoenix, but this time it will not be there. The Leviathans haven't put all the damage into the Phoenix just yet. A delayed deicide and a Game 2 win for the Leviathans.
Yeah, 10 seconds for layers. He's just going to watch this Titan go down. Now 2 up, Dave. and they're playing it pretty clean. I mean, there were a couple of slip-ups there for the Leviathans, specifically 19 minutes, maybe an overextension onto a Phoenix. They stay a little too long. Zap at one point is trying to get the passive going where he can hit Sot next to him and the Phoenix,
right.
but again, they just didn't have enough damage to take that. And that feels like a really good surge forward for the Titans. They get a Fire Giant off the back of that. And then we watch as the numbers continue going in favor of the Leviathans throughout that. If it ever is a Fire Giant power play and the gold says minus 2,000, yeah, things aren't going too
Yeah, it's
well
not
for your
great.
team.
No idea.
We didn't see any of the towers go down. I think it was a saving moment for the Titans, but they couldn't find the team fight to match it.
Maybe more of a delay of the Leviathans
Yeah.
rather than a momentum shift that gives the Titans the lead back. Panatom goes nuts here in game number 2. Got to figure something out. They're the Tartarus Titans. Game number 3 coming up next.
Holy shit! It's Smite's birthday! I have to get everyone a card.
So we definitely.
Oh, come on. Again?
Tarot time! A card. Uh-oh.
Well, while we normally spend our time in our memes wishing Jithans a happy birthday, today we're wishing Smite a happy birthday. Make sure that you jump yourselves into Smite and play some games so you can get a chance to win that Husky Handler Scotty skin. I believe you need 6 wins, 6 days to go throughout that one to get that skin. But most importantly, we have a gem sale going on. So if you've been holding out on buying those gems, going, man, when's the best time for me to get my gems? Well, it's right now, 33% off gems. That means you can buy 33% more gems with the money that you would have spent if you didn't buy it on the sale. So make sure that you log into the client and get yourself some gems, get some really cool skins. Got all kinds of new stuff. I mean, we got the new Tier 5 Izanami skin that's out. I mean, that's a pretty good one if you want to spend your money there. So make sure that you go ahead and buy the Happy Birthday Smite. Again, 33% off all of your gems. And also play this so you can get yourself a nice little Scotty skin out there. Leviathans, though, they find themselves with a nice win here in game number 2. That's why I held on to the balloon there, just so I could get rid of it at that point. But Leviathans with a win here in game 2. Panatom going beast mode on this Gilgamesh, to say the very least. I think is the nicest way that I could put that here. I mean, when he played it for almost every game at Worlds and showed just how dangerous this god is, I typically don't want to give it to him again.
Yeah, he looked pretty unstoppable on this pick. Obviously, game 1, the Titans had a little bit of an early streak, and then it sort of just spiraled out of control. This game, very much more the Leviathans game. There was a small little pushback when SOT had a solid little Phoenix defense, but besides that, it just seemed like Panatom was, running amok. Anywhere he wanted to go, he found success, and the backline damage from Shinto was insane as well.
I mean, Shinto is finding massive final judgments. Even as far as going, I remember at one point I walked out. When you were in the break room, you could probably hear me laughing from like 2 or 3 rooms over whenever Shinto goes for a dive behind the Phoenix. Paul ends up killing him, and Paul just starts turning around and taunting him right after, and then Paul died immediately after that. But that one really tickled my fancy there. But yeah, I mean, Panatom all over the map here on this Gilgamesh is a reason why this god typically doesn't make it into the hands of very many pro players, and especially Panatom.
Yeah, Panatom found success everywhere, like I was just saying. I mean, just crazy amounts of burst damage. The shred was always there, just always in the right spot at the right time. It seemed like the Leviathans really trickled in on this game too, and they said, "We are not giving you guys an inch here. We're trying to get that 3-0. We don't want to drop a single game this year." And they have not this tournament at the very least. So they are starting off very strong for that goal.
Yeah, so far it has been, if I'm not mistaken, 7 games that these guys have been able to dominate through here. I'm trying to do my quick math real quick. 2, 3, 2. Yep, that's 7. There's my quick math of the day. I'm not going to try and do any more here, but Leviathan's now up with a 2-0 start. It means that they are now at match point, and the Titans are going to have to essentially reverse sweep, get a 3-game swing back at the Leviathans, and even just based off performance of this team, not just at Worlds, but from the end of Season 8 and still going up until now, it's hard enough to take 1 game off these guys, let alone 3 in a row.
Yeah, the reverse sweep would be definitely a tale here. Obviously, it wasn't able to happen at Worlds, but this is a completely different stage, a completely different meta. Maybe this would be the chance that the Titans want to bring it out, but at this point, I think, things to touch on. Obviously, the Osiris looked very solid. SOT had a standout performance, I would say. Layers on this Loki, for me, just wasn't able to find any sort of success. Obviously, pretty much bottom damage on the team. Not how much you want to see when Panatom is doing what he's doing. You don't want to look over at Layers and seeing him do that little on the Loki. So the Loki pick, not so much. Maybe if you're going to pick this Osiris, match that sort of pressure. Loki, more of a late game carry, I would say. When he gets online with those items, he can really do a lot. But just these early game warrior jungles seem to have just so much pressure right now.
I didn't even realize that Shinto did 30,000 player damage
in
that game. That is absolutely absurd on this thought, though. Picks and bans for game number 3. This time, the Leviathans opting for second pick, allowing the Leviathans to take their hand out here first, and the first god ban out by said Leviathans will be that Erlung Shen. No surprise, it's a very layers-heavy god. He really loves playing this one. The Kamazots are like two of the go-tos for that jungler on the side of the Titans, so no surprise that the Leviathans will ban both of those two gods.
Yeah, the Leviathans, now that they're first pick, they really don't have too much to worry about here. I feel like they're just trying to get, they want to take layers off any sort of early pressure, which they've clearly done here. They're taking Aurora off that early pressure, which they've done here. And now they're pretty much able to do whatever they want. The Titans, they're going to take away the Gilgamesh. Very smart. Obviously, we just saw what Panatom was able to do on that pick. The Artio, just a very strong solo pick in general. Yarkor has a standout performance every time he touches that character, so just get rid of it. And then the Clean. I think these are all smart bans here, but now the Leviathans pretty much have... They can do whatever they want with this. They have the early lead. They have the 2-0 momentum. The Titans are going to have to throw a wrench in their plans somewhere to get them off this hot streak.
I mean, right now, for the Titans in this first pick spot, it has been Zeus. And I was going to ask, do we think the Leviathans go that way? Well, they'll answer my question before I even get the moment to toss it out there. It is a Zeus first pick, but for the Leviathans this time around. And now we see a little bit of an Uno reverse. We get the Zeus over to the Leviathans, and now Yemoja gives the way of the Titans.
Are we sure these graphics aren't switched? Are we sure that that's not Paul first picking his Zeus and Ron Yu getting his Yemoja? Looks like no. Leviathan said, hey, we're just going to take this Zeus and see how it goes. Obviously now, everything's cleared up because that is clearly SOT's Osiris. So they are going to get SOT back on the Osiris. Had a great game last game, obviously. Take the Yemoja away from Yang Yu. He said, there was way too much pressure with these Rivers of Duke. We don't want to deal with the Riptides backing us up, so let's just make sure we take that away. I like the first two for the Titans. I think this is definitely a better way to go about their draft.
Coach Oddsky hanging out and laughing with the team here as they go through their draft. Medusa second pick with Zeus and Bacchus. So a little bit of a refreshing look here. Bacchus was one of the more popular supports during the SPL play-ins, during the SCC play-ins. This god has really made his rounds back into the meta for the supports. And I was actually a little curious as to why we hadn't seen very much of him this weekend, but now we do see him picked up here to couple alongside Medusa. So the backline carries have been locked in. The dual lane has been locked in for Leviathans. Now where will the Titans go since they've already locked in their front line?
Yeah, I think the Bacchus pick specifically is probably like a top 5 Guardian right now. If Yemoja and if Atlas are off the table, obviously I don't count Artio because that's not really a support. I mean, you really only see the Artio in the solo lane specifically. So this Bacchus just brings you a lot of early game pressure. We've seen this frenzy burp start that just creates so much space. You obviously have to back up unless you get stunned. Then you get level 2. The belly flop comes in afterwards. There's so much you can do with this pick early game. So it's a surprise that we haven't seen it, but there's just been so many other picks that are seeing so much success in this dual lane as well. Nice to see Rongyu and Zap just go for a tried and true pressure lane. Medusa, Bacchus, they're going to have a lot of aggression and very strong early fights. On the flip side, though, Thoth, always a strong answer into Zeus. He's always going to outrange him. Zeus has to get pretty close to the wave. You're always going to be in range of the Hieroglyphic Assault. So Paul said, hey, you kind of made my life a little bit miserable last game with the range. I'm going to try it to you and see how you like it. So Shinto's going to have to position pretty well in this Zeus to get out of range of these final judgments and things like that.
Well, as far as the bans are concerned, Susano on the side of the Titans and Shibalanke for the Leviathans, not wanting to deal with that global blind any longer on that Hunter. So they will remove that, and then a Dodgy in response by the Titans, still banning out that jungle since that hasn't been locked in for Panatom just yet. The problem that I'm seeing with that, though, is Cirquetus still up. Somehow Cirquetus squeaks her way through all of these bans.
Yeah, Panatom didn't really want to prioritize it, I'm guessing. He's probably feeling pretty confident coming off game 2 right now. You got a few different picks that you could lean on here, so it looks like Cirquet could be the option if they choose to. There is a bit of healing coming from that Yemoja, so definitely not a bad pick, but you also don't know about your counter matchup. Layers obviously is still holding on to his jungle pick, unless, of course, for some reason SOT said, hey, you can have the Osiris this time, which, again, I have to reiterate here, not likely. SOT has had such a great performance on this Osiris, so it does look like they are hovering that Cirquet, which, once again, if you haven't seen Panatom on the Cirquet recently, he was able to 100-0 so many different people, full damage build, just burst down, crazy gameplay, obviously. Pretty much the same thing he does with Gilgamesh, except this time just with a little bit more finesse. Cirquet has a little bit more movement, I would say.
Yeah, the return of the Glass Cannon Assassin as Cirquet's rebalance has put her back into being one of the higher damaging single target assassins in the game. I can't even say necessarily single. Yes, our kit's designed around grab one person through, but if you can get that double taunt, hit 2 different people with that Cobra's Kiss, and then dash into both of them, you can do some absurd damage numbers. But alongside that Cirquet is going to be a little bit of a different look here. Sun Wukong locked in on the side of the Atlantis Leviathans. Not a god. That's very common amongst this team specifically. And then the Tartarus Titans will respond with a 10th pick of Wheelish. A god that we saw for a while. It was like the Odin counter. Odin jumps in, I pull him, now he can't do anything. We've also been seeing it a lot more now that Serket has become so prevalent.
Yeah, Serket and Bacchus going to have 2 leaps that are pretty easy to pull here for layers on this that we'll expect. You also have the Yamoja Riptides, which are going to be, you know, if you are hitting those consistently, those are going to be some solid pull opportunities for the Wheelix. So layers just wanted to hold on to this pick in the back and say, hey, maybe I'll whip it out just at the end, just for the last game. Game is on the line right now. Set is on the line, I should say. And we have a few different pulls we can make here. Wheelix, one of those picks, gets very early pressure, very strong level 2, level 3 fight. Getting on top of a Zeus early, pretty easy to do. So if you can outplay a little bit of that Serket CC, Zeus could be free kills for an Wheelix and a Thoth.
I mean, I think after even all the nerfs that Wheelish has gotten to the damage that Featherstep puts out, that thing still hits like a truck. It might as well be like, once you're like level 5, 6, it might as well just be an execute on these low, even, I can't even say low, I would say like a mid-health mage. It's just going to get absolutely annihilated by this god. I mean, the amount of damage she can do early on. But while she is a great early game god out here, typically we've been seeing a lot more towards the late game is where Wheelix starts to fall off. So Trelly, I pose the question to you here is, what is that time frame for the Tartarus Titans to be able to, where they need to really so much get ahead here before the Leviathans have that opportunity to climb themselves back in?
Yeah, the Leviathans, a team for late game team fights, they're always going to be pretty untouchable at that stage in the game. You don't want to let them get there. So I see what the Titans have done here. They've drafted this Wheelix. They have a Neath. Thoth is pretty much good throughout the game, but a lot of early pressure, Osiris, those sort of things. They're trying to get ahead early, and they're trying to not let them get to that late game team fight. They haven't been able to stop them yet from reaching late game. So maybe this draft is another way of saying, like, this time we're going to shut you down early.
Well, let's see how it works early out for them here, because that's where the Tartarus Titans really need to get that early lead out. Osiris and Yamoja to kind of be this frontline pressure. I mean, we saw what SOT was able to do last game on this god. We saw just how much dominance he was able to assert over into that solo lane, and now this Yamoja on the opposite side. What was such a good god for Wrong You? We got to see how well it works out for Aurora here.
Yeah, no, Aurora, I mean, we've seen him so much on this Atlas pick, but finally we saw the Khepri, and there was some minimal success, but the thing about Khepri is, if you're behind, you pretty much get one big save a fight, and then you're not able to do too much. So I'm excited to see him on something that's not as sit back as the Khepri.
Well, Game 3, do or die, everything's on the line here for the Tartarus Titans. Can they bring it back and take us to Game 4? Or the Leviathans going to sweep their way through this tournament?
Leviathans 1 game away from another 3-game set win over the Tartarus Titans in the last couple of months. As Game 3 is underway, Shinto grabs himself the Zeus Paul on the Thoth, so same mid lane matchup. We're just a little flipped, but Gore, I like the mindset here for the Atlantis Leviathans. By the way, chat, one of those balloons still up in the air. All right, can we? All right, do we think you and I, Gore, over the course of an entire cast, can you and I keep this balloon up?
Oh, God, and we got to talk while we're doing it?
Nope, here's what I'm going to say. I've already lost my interest. I'm sitting down, and the balloon is going to hit the ground.
Well, I'm keeping it going.
Oh, you can keep it going.
For a little bit.
I love the mentality of the Leviathans here going into Game 3. Like, don't let the foot off the gas at all. Give us a Bacchus. Give us a Serket. Yarkor on a Bluestone Sun Wukong should be able to find some pressure early in this game.
Yeah, I honestly think it's going to be, I don't know, fun to watch. I think Hardcore gets aggressive, and he plays aggressive well. But going up against Sot is always going to be, well, specifically Sot's Osiris, going to be a little risky because of the Death Soul. So he should be able to win the boxing matches, I think, early on, going over towards Sot, just because he's got the sustain and things like that. But as the game goes on, specifically diving, I'm scared if I'm literally anybody in the game about a Wukong.
Aegis worth its weight in gold for Shinto here. Uses it early, and how about that turnaround damage? Layers thought he had one. Shinto reminds him why he bought Aegis. Paul, one auto attack from dying. And talk about a disaster start for the Tartarus Titans. It's Panatom on the back end of a massive Gilgamesh game, off to a 2-0 start on Serket.
I mean, again, just a really, really good start. And when you think about 5-0 from the other day, I don't know, the Serket seems just as deadly, if not more deadly, than what we've seen out of the Gilgamesh some of the time. And so I think a little bit of a worry that you have to have in the mid lane, immediately onto the Wheelish, whether or not it's going to be able to perform. I do want to give shout-outs, since we're watching over the duo lane. to Hazer for adding a 5th option to Cyclone
Yes.
Spin's poll and having that win.
You know
a
what?
little bit of an assist from the Leviathans.
I don't know if the Leviathans intentionally BM'd Yarkor low. Saw won't be able to finish off this kill. But the winning poll result from the actual
Was the
poll
ROM.
was the ROM, right?
But the ratio tweet of like
Right.
this for Neath
Got it.
from
So I'm
Hazers,
saying
the
the
real MVP.
Leviathans took the winning poll option off the table just in general. 3rd kill of the game, by the way, for Panatom. Killing spree in the mid lane. 4th kill of the game will evade Panatom. Might not evade Shinto, though. Layers mobile enough. Panatom wanted it. But a killing spree for the Leviathans jungler in the mid lane. Aurora dies over in duo as well. And Gormods of the Leviathans are almost 2K ahead in 2 minutes.
That's a lot of K to get ahead in just 2 minutes. It's a lot of gold that's going to be lining their pockets. And I'm starting to look towards where are the win conditions? Well, you want a little bit of Thoth, which, again, good, objective secure, so that gives him some decent control. Although he has to contend not where you would think for it the most, but from the Bacchus, right? Intoxicate is a really good objective fighter, and so something that they can absolutely kick up if they really want. But I also think that Solar Patrol going to be a really big win option, win condition for this team.
You already need it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, already we're talking about how do you get win conditions. That's not really where you want to be 3 minutes in the game if you're the Titans.
I will say, as Belch comes out from Wrong You, applies some anti-heal on a stun to Aurora, secures the purple buff for Zapman. Layers in mid, doesn't get the knock-up, gets the root though. One more tower, doesn't get it done. Layers will survive, but Panatom's got something else in mind. It is another kill over to the Cirquette. So well-timed on the rotation in from Panatom, but a little bit of breathing room now for Paul in the mid lane. Shinto back and
Needed,
respawning.
right? Like you needed some space there to be able to hold on just a little longer.
Like 2 seconds from Aegis, too, for Shinto. That could have gone so differently
Sot.
if the timing had just worked out a little bit better. Sot has to use Lord of the Afterlife to get out. And the tick damage just won't be there. Panatom playing with fire. Zaman adds another onto Aurora here. This dual lane isn't going much better for the Tartarus Titans. As a Medusa and a Bacchus lane, Gore. Like, not surprising that it started out this way. Go
Not
ahead.
at all. It's very aggressive, good control,
But what
and
was
good
that?
damage. No, that laugh was because you remember it was like beginning of season 7. You kept saying Medusa Oblongata like very often.
Yeah, and that was a good bit, and I stand by it.
That's it. You said Medusa, but I heard your voice, and I'm like, oh no, wait, Dave, I'm having flashbacks.
The Medusa Oblongata. It's
Yeah.
the most important part of the brain, or something like
Uh-oh.
that. Shinto has his Aegis back this time, but it will not save his life. His layers goes up and over. A little bit of an assist from Cyclone Spin on the left. Panatom on a 4-kill streak right now.
Seems pretty good.
Out for blood. Aurora will jump away, but the belly flop in from Wrong You. Riptide out beneath the Tier 1 tower, and Aurora makes a nice play happen.
Panatom, I think, accidentally mistimes that run.
I just wanted to go for a
to the
ride.
Riptide. Yeah, maybe a little bit. You mentioned 4-0, a level up in the jungle, and he's going to extend that even further because he's going for steals. They get a red buff, which is now going to be proudly presented on the belt of Wrong Hue, a nice purple buff invade. And 6-6, so Layers isn't falling as behind. Those 2 kills that the Titans have managed to pick up going to him, really helping it out. But a lot of gold that Panatom should be able to go up. And they've, dampened a little bit of that gold lead, right?
Yep.
It kind of hit its peak earlier, and it's just plateaued since then.
It has plateaued. Hasn't gotten worse than 1.6K in 5 minutes. Although the pace that the Leviathans would have to set to keep that going would be near unsustainable. So Panatom would love to sustain it back into a little bit of damage from Shinto. His layers detonate, not enough.
Oh.
I think Panatom maybe thought it was enough. Layers nearly goes down, but the fight is abandoned. This should be a kill. That's Panatom. Blinks in. Rampage now. Yarkor with a bit of a bait. And SOT is going to have to go down and watch Yarkor safely farm up the lane without him.
Look, the Titans can't get that low 3 times in a row and have it go down. That was such a good combo, but the charge from Ball. He still gets the
Yep.
kill, but he canceled and then restarted. Otherwise,
Yep.
it might have been a one-shot.
Oh, no. How many times is this going to happen? Where Paul makes a nice play happen in mid, and then Panatom is just in range. Shutdown, though. That's big. That's a 6-kill shutdown, 4 layers. Needed to happen. And a nice little gold spike downward brings us back to where the gold was just a couple seconds ago. Aurora's just had a tough game here at Gore. It feels like As kills are happening somewhere on the map, Aurora is also dying somewhere on left. 0-3 now, just finishes up the Gauntlet of Thebes.
No way. No way, Zap.
Petrified.
He's got it.
Boop. Sends it towards Cyclone Spin. What a turn! Beads out of Cyclone Spin, and Zapman is not going to get either. As he thought he might get one or the other. But Layers, this time with the bait, pulls the Tartarus Titans to 5 kills.
I can hear the post-game interview now. Hey, what'd you think when Zap tried to 1v2 members of the Titans in the jungle?
He wasn't using his Medusa Oblongata.
Well, I was going to say they were just going to meme him.
Did you see that? I'm sorry, I don't want to catch you. He riptided wrong you back twice just so he could steal the obelisk a couple of times. That is a level of petty I aspire to be one day, Gore.
It's true commitment to the cause. Because look, he got those, and look, they're spawning their obelisks.
Yes.
Like that was a deserved thing. Aurora made a sick play there.
Zapman laughing about it. Wrong you, stone-faced. He's pissed. He got the obelisk stolen. His eyes are on mid lane now. He's gonna
First
make
my carry feeds, then I lose my obelisk buff. This is awful.
He's got something to say about it now. Aurora, you're gonna pay for stealing away that obelisk. Shinto gets a kill given over as Wrongyu continues to put out pressure on this Bacchus. And I will say, Gore, as the fight is about to break out in mid, but Leviathan's a little bit stronger right now. Paul solos out Shinto on the left side of this fight. And if Panatom wanted to jump in, Paul could just not escape it. Wrongyu is calling for the jump in. It looks like belly flop, up, belly flop down. Beads get used by Paul. And enough tower damage will dissuade Panatom and Wrongyu from continuing on.
Honestly, Panatom might be able to get something done here. The minions are going to out him, though. But
Oh
look,
my
that's
God,
a
he
good
does it
shot.
anyway.
Look at that damage that he has as well. I mean, Aurora should be able to save him. And not the way you wanted to go, 7-2. Look, you can see, look at it. Look, Hardcore's kind of like, all right, come on. Like, guys, come on. Like, we can absolutely throw this game.
Well, I mean, look, they've thrown their lead. Look at the gold lead. It's gone away. Wrongyu has to use the beads preemptively. And it looks like Paul will be just fine. Belch turns around, connects for a stun, but Paul is on a killing spree.
Shinto.
Was 1-3 at one point. Now 4-3 for Paul. The Titans fighting back into this game. Knock up onto Shinto, pull onto Shinto. Aurora turns his game around. Was 2 levels behind for a while, now back to even. Gore, the lead is thrown. The lead is thrown. The Tartarus Titans are ahead of this game, despite the start from the Leviathans.
This was a fun masterclass in how to get ahead before 2 minutes. And then lose it all, right? I mean, just like a little bit of over, like a little too much fun, right? They're getting a little too aggressive, diving too many towers, sub 10 minutes.
Oh my God, Shinto's 1-5.
They're still going for it. Yeah, 1-5 for Shinto versus the 7-2, like the polarity between the jungle and mid here.
Well, because it feels like Shinto is like dying, but trading out some good damage, and it's given Panatom the opportunity for like 7 kills throughout this game. Panatom gets stunned. Players will return an auto attack. How's that for some damage? Can't call it a 1v1 because there was an ult from Cyclone Spin. Layers will add his 4th kill of the game. Back to some symmetry in the KDA score. 4-3-3 for both Layers and
Cyclone has a lead. Do you remember how bullied? Aurora's 1-4, and Cyclone Spin has a lead despite Zap getting a lot of those kills. And it is just from assists from this ult and then just the passive farm. I mean, he's been doing a great job just existing in the world. And now the Titans, yeah, they're the bullies this time around.
Shinto has Aegis, but he was stunned and couldn't use it in time. Paul dashes through and another kill over to the Thoth and another death onto Shinto. Gore, this doesn't happen often, where Shinto is like this far behind. You don't see this with the Leviathans like ever. I mean, Shinto can be like even or behind in a lane, but dare I say feeding? That is very, very rare for Shinto out of the mid lane. Yarkor is going to dash away. He'll die here. But is it to the tower or it's an SOT? That's the SOT. Oh, we're on the wrong side of the map. The tower wasn't going to kill him. It was hitting Sot. We're so far on one side of the map. I was sure that it was Yarkor who was too far gone, but it's the Titans who have now rallied, and it's the Titans who are continuing to find kills. No shot.
You know, Dave, back in my day,
no shot.
the Leviathans had a
2K
2K gold lead.
We're 11 minutes into this game, and the Titans are going to pull the FG. And it's going slow. But look, the Leviathans aren't here. It can go as slow as you want when the Leviathans are just not on your side of the map. The Titans have turned this game around. They were 2,000 gold down at 4 minutes. and the Titans now get the FG.
Someone tweeted me 11:04. I need to remember to write that down. That's going to be the quickest Fire Giant we have in the. It's an
Gotta
SBL
be.
branded event. We're counting everything. That's the fastest Fire Giant we're going to have
KDAs
this
too?
year. I feel it.
Are we counting KDA score?
You know what? Luckily, when we do the only regular season tab, it won't. But we do.
Right.
I do have all the KDAs from this event
right.
somewhere.
In Gore's brain. In
Shout
Gore's
out to
brain, the
Zion.
KDAs are saved. Zapman takes an ult from Cyclone Spin just a moment ago. How about this turn? I'm baffled. I'm for sure, and you can probably tell by our tone, we're assuming the Leviathans are just going to steamroll this game and
They
we're
were
done.
up 2K at
They were
2
up 2K.
minutes.
No, you're right. We were safe to assume that. We were okay to assume that. But some overextensions and some good fights back in from the Titans have given Paul now a lead in mid and a lead for Layers out of the jungle, despite Panatom being 7-3. He's 2 levels behind. And the Titans have FG, for God's sakes, at 12 minutes.
There's several MLB pitchers jealous of the throwing techniques that the Leviathans have here, man. I mean, absolute swivel in favor of the Titans. And there's still a lot of opportunity. Look, when you're 12 minutes in with a Fire Giant, typically I was going to say there's a lot of fight back, but then when you one-shot someone with a final judgment and Panatom has to run back onto the Phoenix because you're aggressive on the tier 2, it's a different game they're playing.
I have never seen a 7-3. Nice belly flop from Wrong You. Belch out. Paul gets another kill, though. There's just not enough damage from the Leviathans. And it's only Paul who's under threat of dying here. But the Leviathans have tossed this game to the side, and the Tartarus Titans have commandingly come back in.
It was a clean pitch right down over the plate, center, and the Titans, instead of having it go flying by and it's a strike, they get a home run.
Yeah, they knock it out of the park, Gore.
Not quite a grand slam.
No, not quite.
Because they're still down 2 games.
Right.
But still, I'd give them the home run here.
Right.
And look at, look at that. That
I've
is
never seen a
ridiculous.
now 7-4, but what at the time was a 7-3. Surcat look so scared in a fight. Like Panatom running for the hills at 7-3. Shinto nearly dies again between his own tier 2 and his own Phoenix. This is just brutal. This has gotten difficult to watch for the Leviathans. And I am so impressed by the Titans and their fight back into this game. It would have been so easy to mentally just kind of check out of things with the way that this early game went, but Paul and his ability to stay in it despite dying a couple times to Panatom early is now maybe the biggest threat on the map. And how far behind the Leviathans are, they're very impressive, you know. Speak of the weight of the game however you will, Gore, but this shows a good turnaround for the Titans.
And honestly, the leads are the most comfortable right now, right? 3 levels for the jungle, 2 levels in mid, even overall there in solo. And then the duo lanes falling slightly behind, 2 levels there for Wrong You. That's going to matter most when Yamoja hits this level 12 mark, gets that second relic. And at the rate they're going, they're power farming over on the Leviathan. So they're going to be able to find them pretty quickly if they keep getting kills at this rate.
How different this game feels for Wrong You. I mean, think about Bacchus early, and everywhere Wrong You went was free engage. He was belly flopping to his heart's content, wasn't worried about a thing, anything but now. Layers on a killing spree. 2 more Leviathans dead. Zapman should make a 3rd. Lord of the Afterlife all but confirms it. And Layers snags a double. The Tartarus Titans have blown this game wide open. They still got a Fire Giant buff for 30 seconds. And into the mid lane Phoenix they go.
A 14-minute Phoenix is incredibly quick, and they're burning it pretty fast on top of that. They're getting more kills under the Phoenix as well.
Can they just end?
They might be able to just walk into the end here.
It's a 15-minute game, and the Tartarus Titans were behind 2,000 gold in the first couple of minutes. SOT has a double kill. The Titan looked at by the Titans. Leviathans back and respawning. Out of the fountain goes one. Paul sent into the fountain, and Panatom will grab the shutdown. And it looks like this game goes on. The Titans will not be able to end in 15 minutes.
They're still ahead, though.
Whoa.
They're getting kills on the retreat. They lose their FG buff, but they're still in a good spot. Look, I mean, only really experienced camps for them to strip away from the jungle. So that's going to minimize the deficit, I think, for the Leviathans. 6K, though. That's pretty good 15 minutes in to have all of that. Fire minions. Fire Giants respawning. It's not even like we're talking about the first one. We're talking about number 2 coming back.
Yeah.
This is going to be impressive. Oni, Fury, Pyromancer, and that FG pretty much all lined up in terms of timers. So it's going to be fun to watch how this shakes out, especially if Zap can get this kill.
Zapman sends a Petrify towards Cyclone Spin, but Aurora quick on the shell. Zapman actually under a little bit of threat here. Aurora does decent damage. Lotus Crown helping out Aurora. Layers through the River's Rebuke. Will body block off Zapman, and there's a kill. Layers on a rampage. And Zapman ends up going down for his trouble. Zap was laughing just a moment ago. I think the Leviathans realizing this game has gotten just a bit out of reach. Shinto has beads and has Aegis and will use one of the two. And now the other one goes down, and once the Aegis times out, Layers in on the kill. Yarkor tried to pull one back, but Layers to sustain the shielding. It's too much, and Layers will live. And there will be no return kill for the Atlantis Leviathans. Yarkor off the somersault cloud, down into death. Cyclone spin with another. The conveyor belt continues for the Leviathans as Wrong now belly flops in. Panatop being chased down on the right side of this fight. And the Titans can do no wrong.
Well, maybe. Oh, no.
No
If he had
chance.
tossed him, it's this weird dynamic. Solar Troll kills you if you toss him under the tier 2 further. But he takes more damage. Nah, it's not going to be worth it. You're still going to die. I think Panatom makes a good call there and creates some space, keeps him and Zap alive because they got fire minions to worry about, Dave. And I don't think they're going to be able to defend this one. I mean, it's just good play overall. What was like 8-0 earlier, 8-1, something ridiculous like that for Panatom is 8-5 now. Shinto's 1-9. I mean, this Zeus is going the polar opposite of where you would have thought it was.
Absolutely. And I admire Cyclone Spin for following the Twitter poll and picking the pick that Hazer had thrown out there for Neath. And it's looked good. I mean, Crusher, Aussie, Kin size already. Something in the bow tree after that, and Cyclone Spin at 4-0-8. I love the placement of the World Weaver so far, just used as setup for the rest of the team to rotate into the fights. And the Titans have played so well despite being on the back foot for the first 5 minutes of this game. And as the Fire Giant, the second of the game, Fire Giant for the Tartarus Titans is around their waist for another 3 or so minutes. I'm hard-pressed to see an avenue back into this game for the Leviathans.
Yeah, it's difficult, but realistically, it's under a Phoenix or it's in the Titan. Because at this point, you've got some good damage, you're behind, but this is where you can start it off.
Whoa, Cyclone Spin, that'd be a great first pick. But there's too much damage from the Titans on the back end. Final Judgment, it's not there. Yarkor, Somersault Cloud down. He chunks down some damage off of Cyclone Spin, but he is deleted in trade. Zapman, Wrong and Shinto, the last 3 alive for the Atlantis Leviathans. 18.5 minutes on the clock, Gore. And the Tartarus Titans have 30 kills, 2 FGs, and what looks like will be a Game 3 win, and they'll push us on to a Game 4.
Yeah, I think this one got out of hand fast for the Levi's is the best way to describe it.
Look at Panatom.
Gotta grab my balloons here.
Panatom was 7-3 at one point this game.
Yeah, so do you
Shinto is
remember when
1-10.
we were watching this and we were like, oh, look at that, 2K gold lead for the Leviathan. Like, it felt like it was over super early on in this game. And it felt like it was, I mean, anytime the Leviathans were getting killing right, they were killing Aurora on left, any amount of pressure they had elsewhere, it just felt like they were bound to get a kill. And then they keep diving towers, and those kills slip away. And then they dive another tower, and that kill slips away. And it keeps going like that until eventually the leads disappear. And then all of a sudden the Titans win a fight, and then all of a sudden the Titans have a lead, and all of a sudden the Titans are doing a 10-minute Fire Giant. They're pushing as fast as they can to run forward with it, and they get it, and they win that game and do really well. Is red and orange?
Huh? What does red and orange have to...
for
for the
Titans.
Oh, for the Titans.
Yeah.
Blue and yellow would have been right there. Gore's always prepared for these sorts of things. Great. I mean...
I was absolutely paying attention in
honestly,
those very crucial team
yes,
fights.
very crucial. One of the best early games we've seen really all weekend long, Gore, from the Leviathans. And then one of the heftiest throws I've seen all year long in the last couple of years.
Ooh, Hail Mary.
Like Joe Burrow out there
Exclamation
throwing
point
passes.
Hail Mary in the chat.
Exclamation point Hail Mary in the
forgot we
chat.
have that one.
We go on. Game number 4 between the Titans and the Leviathans right after this break.
Fly with the stars, sound free. Party all day, every weekend. Make it boom, boom to the beat. Make it boom, 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 boom. Fly with the stars, sound free. Party all day, every weekend. Make it boom, boom to the beat. Make it boom, 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 boom. I'm glad to be alive, 'cause I don't wanna waste my time, no. I'm young and dumb. coming hopeless, right? But I'm bound to turn out alright, yeah. The city's really not my vibe now, so I'm moving out my parents' house, yeah. To go and live another life where my dreams don't lay down and die. I'll hang out with the folks on screen. I'll be chilling in a pot of gold. You should bet your money on me, 'cause I'm never ever coming home. I'll fly with the stars, I'm free. Party all day, every weekend. Make it boom, boom to the beat. Make it boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Fly with the stars, I'm free. Party all day, every weekend. Make it boom, boom to the beat. Make it boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.
You can call 1,000 times, but I'm not picking up tonight, 'cause I'm a bit too busy serving on smiles, having me a real good time with a drink full of bubbles. This is bad for my health. Holy shit, I just stumbled. Still I'm feeling myself.
Fly with the stars, so I'm free. Party all day, every weekend. Make it boom, boom to the beat. Make it boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Fly with the stars, so I'm free. Party all day, every weekend. Make it boom, boom to the beat. Make it boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.
maybe the Leviathans could clean sweep their way through one of these tournaments. But no, the Tartarus Titans are there to put a brick wall in their path and send us into game number 4. And unfortunately for our old friend Broom here, he has seen better days. You can blame Hindu Man for this one. If y'all don't remember all the way back at Worlds when he snapped this one. Sorry, Mifflin. Your Broom's seen better days. We're slowly getting it back together here. It's like the Titans are getting this set back together, able to bring us now into game number 4. This is not going to sit here well.
Just drop it.
This is going to I don't want to drop it. It's going to if I yeah, you know what? There, it's gone. It's gone. I've gotten rid of it. Luckily, it didn't break any further than that. Oh, no. He's going to pan over to the poor Broom. That's how far I was able to throw it. I didn't want to break it or scratch anything else up here. But Titans with a very speedy game number 4 here. We almost had a 15.5-minute game-ending call there.
Yep.
It started, but then they kind of, I'll say it, they kind of trolled a little bit in the Titan room. We were going for a couple more kills than the Titan there. But at the end, their second push is what got them there.
I honestly can't tell you if it was something that turned on in the Titans' head or if it was something that turned off in the Leviathans' head that really made this game turn, because Pantom had 7 early kills and then just felt like he couldn't get anywhere near Paul because of how much damage he was dishing out.
I mean, it was a early game here for the Leviathans. Like you said, 7 up on Panatom. I mean, the Leviathans were crushing it across the board. And then one 11-minute Fire Giant call. One of, if not the fastest, I don't think it is actually the fastest, so I'm going to start it with one of the fastest Fire Giants that we have had in the SPL, period, throughout all of our years out here. Definitely the fastest one here in Season 9. Brings the Titans back into the game, and then from that point on, the Titans are able to win this one out. Cyclone and Paul just stopped moving.
Yeah, I mean, they had all the lead they really needed to. Layers started popping off, had a rough start, but then after that really just found lots of success all over the map on the Awilix pick. I was literally, we were talking, just watching, and I was like, man, I just said on the desk they drafted this comp for early aggression, and this Awilix is not finding any early aggression. And then after that, Layers just turned on. As you can see, unstoppable there. Found a 7-kill streak, probably about to be that 8-kill streak. It was just insane how much damage he was able to get off, even after having that rough early game.
Yeah, Layers really did pop here at the end of the game. A double kill right at the tail end towards that Titan. Actually, I think he ended up getting a triple kill here on a Shinto too. So, I mean, yeah, maybe this is our curse. Maybe we shouldn't talk about gods being early game or late game. We should just talk about the fact that God even exists at this point. 11-3 for Layers, 10-4 for Paul. And that 7-kill start that Panatom had only got him 1 more after that, and then it was 6 deaths immediately after here. Tartarus Titans turn this game completely on its head, and they now send us into game number 4, Trelly.
Yeah, the biggest difference for me was I feel like Shinto really couldn't have that success that he's been having not just this set, but this whole tournament in general. He just was not able to find it on this Zeus pick. Maybe in my head he was taking it away from Paul, and then just decided, you know what, I don't want this Zeus pick either. So I think gets Shinto on something he feels more confident on and just roll this one through. I mean, you've had the lead. You've shown the presence. It's just something in this game. Again, I don't know if it was turning off in Leviathans or turning on for the Titans. Either way, something switched in this game.
And we are now in picks and bans for game number 4 in our best-of-5 finals between the Leviathans and the Titans. First ban's coming out. Osiris this time for Leviathans. They are done with SOT's signature solo pick here. They'll take that one off the board immediately alongside that Atlas, so not letting their frontliners have some of their favorite picks out here. Meanwhile, the Titans will follow suit by not letting some of their frontliners have some of their favorite picks here. Ardio and Gilgamesh both taken away.
Yep, getting rid of some of those tanky targets early. I definitely think getting SOT off this Osiris is a good place to start. I mean, like I said, you found your success early game. It was just a series of misplays that just sort of led to, what seemed to be a bit of a drop there. So I think the Leviathans getting rid of SOT's safe but also aggressive pick is a nice way to go about this. Obviously, Aurora on the Atlas, that's something that we've talked about a few times now. Very strong in the lane, making sure that Cyclone's able to get at least a little bit of pressure, maybe set up an early kill or two. Getting rid of that Atlas, definitely a smart pick there. And then obviously, these 3 bands on the right, Kleena Gilg and Ardio, just very strong picks in general, just top tier picks in the meta right now, so all pretty par for the course, I would say.
Pretty much just the meta at this point, being banned away by these 2 teams. A couple of targeted bans, at least on the side of the Leviathans, that still double down as those metas. Speaking of meta gods, Kamazotz has not found his way out of the meta just yet, so he'll sneak his way in onto the Leviathans draft. Tartarus Titans now have 2 to their name here. Thoth was the call for Paul in game number 3. I wonder if he'll be going back to that option again. That's what brought Shinto success in games 1 and 2, and then Paul, obviously, now in game 3, was able to get a win there. Do you think that Thoth is the one that he maybe goes to? Just is that the de facto point? Is the Thoth the win condition?
For me, it seemed like Paul likes picking the Thoth into the Zeus specifically. I'm not saying his Thoth is bad because we know it's not. We just saw it. But I think Paul usually, I will say not every time, but usually likes to hold off and sort of look at his mid lane matchup before picking the mage. It's very rare that we see that first pick mage for the Titans right now specifically. So I think they're going to sit back and wait to see what the Leviathans pick. If the Zeus comes through again, which again I really don't think it will because the performance was not great and it just, Shinto felt pretty useless there. And I think right now he wants to pop off and say, hey, I got a bad game. Give me like a run back, that sort of thing. So I don't think Paul's going to touch the Thoth until he sees what the Leviathans are drafting for Shinto.
Fair enough here. Achilles and Yamoja will be the first 2 picks by the Titans. Make sure to get layers, something comfortable. Make sure to get Aurora back on one of the more prominent supports in the game right now. So the option does go back to the Leviathans. They didn't draft their mid laner up until the second phase at the very least here, so they might still hold true on that. Bacchus being hovered has its strong points that we saw in previous sets, previous games. Maybe not the most success in last game specifically, but that level of aggression that you're able to get out there, the frenzy belch level 1 into getting your early level 2 so you can get that belly flop odds made this god so potent in that duo lane.
Yeah, pairing that with an Uller is going to be unmatched aggression early, I would say. Nothing really screams to me having more pressure than Bacchus and Uller at level 2. That's just a ton of abilities, a ton of stun, just raw damage in that duo lane specifically. So if you are going to draft something with this Yamoja, I would say either something very safe or something to match the pressure as well as you can. You're not going to get that level of aggression right now in any duo lane, especially Yamoja, not the strongest level 2 as opposed to the Bacchus anyway. So probably he's going to look for something safe. I mean, Medusa is still open, a very popular pick right now. Petrify, this huge AoE ultimate that's pretty solid for objective confirm, objective steals as we've seen over the past couple weeks, as well as just a nice poke matchup in the lane.
We'll see what the Titans go to with their 3rd pick here. As you say, Medusa's still a very potent option in that duo lane. Mid lane is still open if Paul wants to get his pick, or they could just give it to SOT here. But no, it will be Paul's pick. The Morgan line in now for the Titans mid laner. And now the bands come back through here. Hunter has been picked up for the Leviathans, no mid lane, so we could potentially see the Titans take a couple of those mid-priority picks. Thoth is an option. Agni still very potent even with the nerfs to the flat pen, and it will at least start out with Thoth ban on the side of the Titans.
Yeah, Morgan, pretty safe pick here. Every time Paul sees this Camazotz in the game, I think it's a safe bet to assume the Morgan is at least on the mind. Also, the Uller is already picked, so you can't pick Heimdall to reveal some of that stealth when the Morgan is invisible. So pretty safe bet there, just having a safe transformation, a good engage, a good disengage, and no sort of stealth revealing tech on the enemy team, unless you're drafting double Hunter, which in this case could happen. Uller mid is not a terrible option, but I just think right now Bacchus Uller just so strong together. Pretty fair to assume that's going to be the duo lane matchup.
The Titans now hovering their Hunter option.
Feel
Cyclone
my wrath.
wants to take Rom over into the duo lane. Only seen him very sparingly over the last few, honestly, even like the last 6+ months of competitive play. It's a god who hasn't seen nearly as much play. It hasn't really fit some of these new kind of these new kind of Hunter metas out here. The Crusher start doesn't really benefit Rom as much as some of the other Hunters out there. But one thing that's always kind of gone hand in hand with some of the Hunters like Jingwei, like Rom, when crit is meta, those two gods usually find their way into the meta themselves.
I am very amazed that Shinto is going to be running back this Zeus pick. I mean, I feel like if you're Shinto right now, obviously you had the early game pressure. You're going to be the main target of damage no matter what, but he just felt like he couldn't survive those fights. So at this point, I'm thinking it's probably just a principle right now where I want to pick this pick, run it back, and have much more success than I found last game. Team, defend me, I'm going to pop up. I think this is an ego pick, a salty run back, if you will, I believe it's called. So I think Shinto just wants to make sure he's able to do a lot more things on the Zeus pick this time around. Wow, it looks like it's going to be a last pick Bastet. That is going to be a lot of pressure for layers, number one. If it is going to be for layers, let me hold that thought because the assassins usually go to the solo lane. So actually, it could be a lot of pressure for SOT in the solo lane. Also, a great transformation for Paul was what I was going to say.
Man, how did we forget about Bastet? How did we just completely blank the fact that Bastet, one of the top assassins in the game, who was banned by almost every single team the last 3 or so weeks of competitive that we've had the opportunity to watch, even up until this tournament, I've been seeing a lot of bans. She makes it the 10th pick, Trelly. What an absurdity that we are at here. Zeus and Susano, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say Zeusano over there, but I guess if you want to call it the 2v2 combo on the side of Leviathans, but a Bastet last pick here. And as you said, We've been seeing non-stop assassin solos. We're probably going to see one here with this Camazotz yet again. So we're going to have that assassin matchup there in the solo lane.
Yeah, I think as we were, again, I touched on this a little bit before, but we were watching that World Finals sort of documentary just a bit ago. Layers did bring out that Bastet and did not find that sort of success on it. So I think the Leviathans, they don't really put any stock in the Layers Bastet. But SOT, on the other hand, that's going to be a different story. Now that this Bastet is probably going to be going to that solo lane, it's going to be a little bit of a different dynamic. You can get that Soul Leader online a lot easier. You have a wave to stack it on instead of the camps. And then the rotations from this Bastet could be a little bit better, I think, in the soul lane.
And when we're looking at this mid 2v2 matchup, the Zeus and Susano kind of versus this, I guess it's going to be the Achilles Morgan in this case, since we are assuming this Bastet could go solo. Still has the flex over into the jungle, vice versa. Achilles can go over to the solo, but I'm gonna hedge my bets on that. This is going to be Morgan Achilles in that mid. How does that matchup fare up against what the Leviathans have drafted, Trelly?
It's a lot of early pressure. Again, this Morgan pick, it's so versatile. You never really know what the transformation is going to be. It's safe to assume it's going to be that Camazotz, the bat out of hell, such a good engage or disengage. But if you want to switch it up, go for some hard CC. The Bastet is there. If you want to get really crazy, you could drop 2 Yamoja walls, form the box, and then you have a just a party in the mid lane. So you never really know what Paul's going to do on this pick. He has a lot of different options. I would say the 2v2, whenever there's a Morgan involved, you always have to give it that way because you never know how to deal with it.
Yeah, very deadly and dynamic potential, too, that you could have there, as you say, with that Morgan. And as you've been highlighting throughout the entirety of the draft, plenty of transformation options. Bastet, if you want double Achilles from our executes. Yamoja, if you want walls. Camazotz has become one of the most staple Morgan transformations. That's the word I was trying to look for, was Morgan transformations. We'll see if the Tartarus Titans can take us to game number 5, or Leviathan's going to close it out here. Let's take it right into game number 4 and see what happens.
Time for the reverse sweep to continue here if you're the Tartarus Titans in game number 4. A game that, in game 3, Gore, maybe should have ended if the Leviathans kept up their momentum. But a great turnaround, a great comeback in game 3 gave us a game number 4 here. And another similar look, Gore, for the Leviathans, where you've got a very aggressive duo lane for Rongyu and Zapman, and the ability to make some plays in the jungle. And so, if I'm Paul this game, I'm keeping my eyes open because a couple of the early kills for the Leviathans in game 3 were there in mid.
Yeah, I think it's going to be mid where I'm keeping my eyes the most. There's no way Shinto goes like 1-9 again, right? Like, I just can't imagine them getting that aggressive. Depends on whether or not they want to put this one to bed here. Of course, that depends on how hard the Titans will end up playing as they push forward. Paul on this Morgan, all I can think of, again, is the Worlds moment, pulling things back in favor of their team, despite how far behind they were. He's scary on this god, man. And you know what? Actually, thinking back to the Worlds before that, them running down the Titan in the last game, and it's Paul on the Morgan.
Aggro with the iconic call with the transformation. Pittsburgh Knights go back-to-back. I mean,
Paul's kind of nuts on this guy.
A storied list of games. And Gore, bringing us back here in Game 4 of the SPL Kickoff tournament would be the crown on top of the jewel on top of the crown. All those moments for Paul, this would be the one.
This would be the number one, the best Paul Morgan combo moment.
Right. I can already see the highlight reel, and this one is at the end of it. Shinto nearly down in the mid lane. Pressure from Layers there. The Bastet getting active early on here in this game. Rongyu and Zapman, as we'd expect, have pressure over here in duo. Zapman has to forward step the stun. That means he's in range for Cyclone Spin to find a little bit of damage. Both Hunters down beneath half HP.
I like the aggression that Bacchus can bring to this lane. Yamoja, we used to talk about it, and I think the clear numbers have to be discussed with her, especially with Rom. It used to be one of the fastest clearing lanes that you could have. But, she still brings a good amount of pressure to the lane. Nowhere near as much as the Bacchus can bring, at least in the right hands. And right now, Rongyu is in the right hands, being able to jump forward, kind of get those knock-ups, have the belch for control, good zoning, things like that.
Whoa, nice play from Panatom.
Oh my God.
Finds the teleport into Paul, and there's first blood. Layers won't get a return kill even. Shinto notches one in the mid lane. Leviathans off to a 2-0 start over in the mid.
And this would be, the real opener for him, right? You get those 2 kills, immediately you're feeling confident. Look, Dave, I'm having flashbacks to game 3, though. You can't get ahead and, play around as much as they did last time, right? A lot of tower dives that were happening there in game number 3. And the Leviathans end up biting off more than they can chew in quite a few scenarios. I think this is the kind of lead that you take and you go with slowly here if you're Panatom. You try to find a little bit of those openings, see how often you can get onto Paul, especially early on. The Morrigan, not really great at just escaping everything. Oh, Solar Troll maybe taking a page out of the Leviathan's book from that last game. Dives the tier 2 here for a second. Not going to cost him too much, but just ideas like that. I think if you can play it, get yourself another comfortable lead here if you're Panatom, and then not dive the tier 2 tower 6 minutes in, that'll probably help alleviate
Gore, this is going to be such a that's a small moment there for SOT, right? And I don't want to look too far into it, but it does make me start to think about how different this Titans team could look throughout the course of this year.
Yeah.
Benji, one of the best solo laners to ever do it.
Yep.
And was one of the best in his role over the course of last year. And I mean this in the best way possible. SOT feels a little bit more like unhinged at times than Benji did, you know what I mean? As far as on-field play, like the W key mentality for SOT, some of the more unique plays. Cyclone spin, ganked and teleported, and won't be pulled by Panatom because the pullback in deals the last bit of damage, and the Susano off to a 2-0 start. But the point about SOT, Gore, I think, is that I'm curious as to how the Titans of last year compare to the Titans of this year as far as play around the right side of the map.
I'm also curious how it changes comm dynamics, right? That's something else. Like solo, there's not a lot that goes on in solo, so it might not matter and impact as much. But in team fights, it could really be a big change for them. And I'm excited to see it. Plus, if we're seeing, even things like this, whether or not you want to take this at face value for what this game is, but getting the best of hardcore a couple of times here. I mean, still having the poke lead this time around, forcing him out under his tier 2 last time that we glanced over there. I think he brings a lot of pressure to this lane. And like you said, Benji, fantastic, did that a lot of the time as well. But I think we got to see a lot of the fresh starts of what is going to be a fantastic career for Solar Troll last year.
Aurora's trying to steal away the lane minion, and Riptide's the wrong direction, takes a tower shot and a stun, and Panatom was there anyway. An unfortunate moment for Aurora. As now there's a nice column of ones where everyone on the Titans have died once, except for SOT on the right side of the map. As an opening for a blue buff invade here, and he'll take it. And so, Gore, it's a glimmer of game 1 here.
So now if things go wrong, we know who to blame. It's all hardcore.
Right, it's all hardcore. If things go wrong for the Leviathans this time, it's all Yark the Shark, because he's the only one without a big lead in his lane. 1 level in the jungle, 1 level in mid. And then about half a level support, 1 level in ADC for the Leviathans. And it's a similar start where we're 1,000 gold, 5 minutes in. It's where the Titans turn things around, though, in game 3. So far from over here in game number 4.
I still want to see what they're going to be capable of, right? I think I have to like scrub my brain of game number 3. I think it kind of tainted the way I'm viewing the game, because I like where the Leviathans are at. This is a good lead for them early on. You've got good control. Shinto on this Zeus is going to be able to get decent damage out pretty early on. So with Panatom and Rongyu, it should open up a lot of opportunities for them in mid and create potentially a dynamic that's not necessarily unbeatable by the Titans, but something that's going to make it more difficult for Layers and Paul to get as aggressive as their gods can be.
Panatom does a lot of damage here to SOT, completed the Jotuns. And then tier 1 item after that. So 3 versus 3 on the right side of the map. Starts to spring up just a bit. SOT low on health but full on mana. Yarkor the opposite, full on health but has no mana. And so I think both solo laners reluctant to get involved in an engagement there as both supports.
A true classic stalemate.
Yeah. Maybe if there was enough mana for the bat out of hell, maybe for Yarkor. Feels a little bit more confident, but that mana bar was quite low. Rongyu over in mid, gets a stun onto Aurora, and when Panatom is around the corner, you got to be worried about what's about to happen. Blinks over the Riptide, stun out from Paul, transforms into the Kamazots. Bat out of hell could be around the corner here. Layers looks for the root, gets the pullback onto Rongyu. Bat out of hell is in. Doesn't end up connecting for much damage for Paul. D-transforms on the left side of this fight. Belch out, belly flop in, Layers down. Shinto adds the only kill in mid.
And there's where that damage comes through, right? It's just that you dive too deep. Zeus, he's immobile. He's easy to chase down. At level 9, he's usually easy prey, so that should have been a good kill. But, Paul is chasing down Panatom. Layers is trying to figure out whether or not he wants Rongyu or Shinto. He's trying to go for Shinto. Unfortunately, ends up grabbing Rongyu for a little bit of that. Body blocks come through. And all of a sudden, Shinto's just getting this damage out there, some retaliation in his lane. And that opens up more avenues than this Bastet could have maybe predicted jumping into that. Paul has to disengage, and you just got to get hung out to dry by the rest of the team because there's not much else that they can do in a scenario like that. And that's the dangers. I mean, now you're looking at a level lead in both jungle and mid, and it could graduate, to 2 levels relatively soon. All they need is a little bit of farm. 3-0-2 there for Panatom, 2-0-1 for Shinto. They're by no means safe. I think Zeus is still a sitting duck, but with the items that he's going to be able to buy, specifically getting the Celestial Legion helm, now he's got more Fizzprots online. He's going to be a little bit safer, deal a little more damage. It's going to be harder for Layers to get things rolling in this lane.
Outside of the end, outside of like 80% of Game 3, the last 80%, Rongyu is very effective on this Bacchus pick, Gore, and the start of Game 4 has felt very similar. Should be a 1v1 for Panatom here. It is. Cyclone Spin, no chance. When a 3-0 Susano rotates into your lane, and you're a Ram, and you don't have ult, the odds of you being able to turn that around are pretty slim. So Panatom Gore will notch another one and further extend his lead.
And I like being able to see this. 4-0 start for Panatom. Usually a really good sign for them.
Yeah, usually, right?
And you know what? I'll take the 99er out instead of the 1 that we got to see. So most of this should be able to flourish. It's going to be when he starts looking for more invades, maybe going for slightly riskier plays in terms of, how close they are to the tower line, who exactly it is he's trying to kill off. Those, I think, are going to be where the true lead can manifest on its side. But you're already seeing the big difference again. It's the Celestial Legion helm, tier 3 over the tier 1 that Paul has. You've got the hi-rez here for Panatom, the tier 3 over the tier 1 mace that Layers has picked up.
No.
Oh, poor Zap.
Yeah, poor Zap. The writing is on the wall here, and he misses his axe. Might have some damage on the other end, and leaps away. But Layers jumps in as well. Snipes from Cyclone Spin, ult out of Layers. And that'll be the first kill of game number 4 over to the Titans.
He keeps his beats, loses his life, gets 2 ults. Weird dynamic, but maybe a little bit of an even trade. Like at the end of the day, being able to get all of those really does create an opportunity, or at least a void now for the Titans, where Cyclone Spin's not going to be able to find many snipes, so there's damage missing. But most importantly, Layers doesn't have that ult, and that's brilliant engage from a Bastet.
What is going to happen to Rongyu here? He uses Intoxicate, but I think the Titans thought that the rest of the Leviathans were a little bit closer. Rongyu nearly just gets taken down by Aurora here and has to walk right back into the River's Rebuke. Should be a kill for the Titans. Rongyu not able to get out of Aurora's ultimate. Now Shinto laid into this fight as well. There's a Lightning Storm awaiting on the back end. Whenever Shinto is ready to use it, Paul transforms once again into the Camazotz. Bat out of Hell is defensive this time. And another individual trade for the Tartarus Titans.
But this time around, I mean, being able to pick up specifically Rongyu, slow things down, go in, scoop away the purple buff, you're getting experience back in your favor. And again, it was what felt like a, not like massive lead for the Leviathans, but at least something to build off of. It's just kind of slipped out of their hands here, not necessarily from their fault. The Titans are playing very proactive across the map. And if this continues going the way it is, Yarkor ends up going down anytime soon. That's a huge win for Solar Troll.
Yeah, Sot was able to get Yarkor down into execute threshold, but didn't end up using the Fatal Strike. Now Panatom over on right. Puts plenty of damage into Aurora. Panatom will not take the Avenue back in, not this time. So the Leviathans and the Titans. Remember, it was right around this point where the game slowed down, where the Titans found themselves their first big fight. Leviathans will look to remedy the issues from Game 3 here in Game 4, and they're able to do so. Layers rotates over to right. Ultimate is no good this time. Typhoon finds a knock-up on the Layers as it's sent over to the left. Panatom desperately trying to outrun the cat, able to do so. Yarkor gets the second kill, and the Leviathans keep their pace.
I don't know if I've seen someone that close able to juke out the cat. I mean, good teleport from Panatom, stays alive. They get 2 clean kills, a Pyromancer essentially on a silver platter waiting for them. I don't know that Aurora is going to be able to steal that one. I had to hold my breath either way just because of the chance that was there. It's a good play from them, good rotation in. Unfortunate for Layers that the cat ends up going a little to the left. I think if it immediately aggroes onto the right, then we probably see Panatom go down, and it's at least a 2-for-1 trade. And you get a pretty big bounty. I mean, he's 4-0-4. You're going to get some good gold off of that one. Maybe match up to level 11 and close up the gap in the jungle area. But as of now, you're 1-3 for your Bastet. The ult hasn't necessarily been providing, I think, as much as they want. So the Leviathans are feeling, once again, confident in themselves, able to move forward. Rongyu is using this ult very just...
Whoa! Cyclone Spin before he's even able to get into the ultimate. Takes massive damage from Rongyu. Layers, though, rotates over to the left side of the map, and he will trade out one with Zapman. Both ADCs are gone. So Rongyu under a little bit of pressure, but Panatom, the 4-0 man, takes a lot of damage from Paul now, transforms into the Kamazots. Bat out of hell, could provide the last bit of damage, and it sure does. And the Titans will not give up quietly. And Paul will grab another kill here this game. The Morgan off to a 2-1 start, and just the rotation score feeling all right now for the Tartarus Titans, despite a bit of a lead for the Leviathans.
I think that this is, again, reminiscent of the last game. It has me a little worried for them. I think killing off Zap, though, like going for the trade, first off, Cyclone got just deleted. And I think Rongyu's also in this position. I was trying to like throw it out there, but just freely using his ult, a lot of the pressure matters is what happens to Shinta, right? He was 1-9, he's 2-0 this time around. Good damage, but he has to use his ult. Those are where these trades are going to be looking, you know, maybe either in favor or against the Titans. So they get a kill there, they get his ult, but he maintains his relics. So feels pressure, is pressured, not able to get the kill off of it. I think the Titans, if they can get that a little more crisp, all of a sudden Shinta becomes a weak point.
Yep, agreed. Zapman makes good use of his rotations there, sends a chunk of damage Paul's way. Fully stacked Transcendence for one of the two ADCs. Cyclone Spin sticks with what's been a little bit more standard here, Crusher into Aussie, and then Chinside's usually that third item. Cold Fury stands score. I don't think a big enough lead where the Titans will feel nervous stepping up to this one, especially not after some of the trades that have been happening on left. Cyclone's been a slight level lead despite being 0-3. Has the 2 assists. Feels like Paul, again, Gore, on this Morgan. We kind of set the stage where Morgan and Paul, such a storied history between those two. That's stun onto a roar. Zapman misses his axe and a Riptide away. Will delay things, but watch out. Layers is here.
This is a good spot for him. Again, a good ult from Layers, although not available. Could potentially get a huge kill for them. I was thinking the timing was going to be a lot closer. I mean, he ran into that gank. I thought he was going to be a lot more confident, or at least have that up pretty soon. It's taking a little bit longer than I expected. But he's still hanging out in the left side jungle. I mean, all it takes is Rongyu misstepping, and all of a sudden, that's going to be a free kill.
Gore, Panatom hasn't made many waves here in the last couple of minutes of this game in the same way that he had early on. I mean, you'll never catch me scoffing at a 4-1-4 Susano. Oh, the damage nearly there, but a good shell from Aurora. Secures his escape. Zapman has to leave as well. Snipes from Cyclone Spin, 2 out of 3, but wouldn't have been enough damage either way. So there's one member of each team.
Yeah,
it's down to red low. HP. Have to back away. I'd rather have Zapman, though, if I'm around this Gold Fury.
I mean, Sot, yeah, I was going to say, Sot, Layers, Cyclone, Paul, all still available. You could have Sot kind of pick up the Fury and potentially try to fight, but now they might lose Cyclone.
Yeah, you are going to lose Cyclone here, and it's Rongyu on a killing spree as the third of the game now for the Bacchus. Shuts down an important target on the Tartarus Titans. 35 seconds left on Cyclone Spin's respawns. Rongyu needs to get out cleanly here, though, to make it feel absolutely worth it. An ultimate gets used, but Bacchus is tanky. Takes another sip of his drink, and the Prot stacking up. So Lower Troll has eyes on a Tier 1 tower dive, and the Leviathans will wag their finger in their face.
I like the fact that they're able to at least get proactive. Unfortunate to lose Cyclone Spin, 0-4 for the ROM. Not very clean, I guess, for him, but not really his fault, right? Not much he can do. Well, I guess theoretically he can stop putting Twitter polls out and pick something, but playing the people's champion, people's god here, I guess is the better way to describe it. And so we're locking it forward for them. Good damage from him if he hits those
The Neath
ults.
looks good.
The Neath looks really good. Honestly, this doesn't look bad. He's still able to get some return damage, not a lot, but he's keeping up specifically with where Zapman is, where that is what matters most over there. If he hits those ults, though, that's really the big difference maker. It's just that they've not been able to collapse on Zap quite as much as Cyclone has.
Oh, I thought that damage from Aurora rolled through right as the Fury goes down. I thought for a second maybe the Titans had stolen it away. Not the case, though, as the Leviathans get the big Gold Fury. Continue to build up that lead. Things had stagnated for a little while there, Gore. The Leviathans back on the upswing. Had reached 3,000 earlier. Dip back down to 1.5 to 2,000. Now swing back up to 4,000. 5,000 in the experience department. And so despite the game feeling a little bit slower, it's been slow in a good way for the Leviathans, where the farm and the experience have started to tick back up towards them. And a hefty amount, Gore, of that XP difference. You know, 1 level in jungle, 1 level in solo, but it's the 3 levels of difference between Rongyu and Aurora. Continuing to play around support. Strong, strong look for the Leviathans.
Yeah, and honestly, I think we're in a good spot for the Titans as well. It's a good lead and very comfortable, confident lead, I think, for the Leviathans, but the Titans are still able to fight back. They're finding a lot of good setup, despite a lot of the kills going in favor of the Leviathans, despite a lot of the gold going in favor of the Leviathans. I mean, look at where Hardcore's at.
A lot of damage from Paul, but he takes a lot of damage in exchange. An ultimate from Lair sends Hardcore to his death. Paul, with the immediate transform into Camazotz, bat out of hell, gets him out of dodge, snipes up from Cyclone Spin, looking for Panatom, won't end up connecting. Wrong you, backing on a belly flop, gets a double knockup, but doesn't have his belch, doesn't have Intoxicate either. You just gotta chase him down if you're the Leviathans, and they're able to do so. SOT ends up getting detonated, but the last bit of damage is Panatom.
So far, 1 for 1, solo for solo. If they can get Lairs, if they can get a Roar, either one of them is worthwhile. Beautiful. River's Rebuke, but Zap goes in. He gets the stun as well.
Oh, Zapman says hello, gets a stun onto a Roar. Cyclone
Shinto's
Spin
here.
returns a lot of damage, and Shinto on a killing spree. Zapman up and over the wall, and Zapman sets up a kill for his mid.
I've got to give him credit. Most people see those walls and they pull back. I mean, with the team where they were, maybe you could pull back. 18 minutes, not a bad time for a Fire Giant to try and get it started. You got a Zeus, you've got Uller, plenty of damage to try and burn it down. Maybe still a risky call, given the Titans that were still alive, but you probably get something out of it at minimum. Jumping over that wall was maybe the last thing I expected to see out of the Uller. And Zapman is better for it. I mean, being able to find the stun, pulls attention back towards him, allows Shinto to come up and get the kill. He's now at 3-0-2, again, on par with where Paul is. So shout-outs to Paul and his farm game for keeping up with Shinto. But it's really set everybody else up for success. 3 levels there in support, 2 levels there for the jungle, and just 1 level there for Hardcore. But everyone around the carries are really elevated beyond their opponents.
Golden XP very close in the mid lane, but damage feels pretty discrepant here, where Paul down at the bottom of the damage charts, 4.4k, a little bit higher up, doubling up, and then some is Shinto, nearly at 10,000. So Morgan has done good at last hitting, finding a couple of kills here for the Titans, but damage-wise, you'll hope that that number climbs up throughout the rest of these fights. A couple bad, I mean, Camazotz is usually a pretty obvious transformation target, Gore. Bat Out of Hell has been a useful tool for Paul, but last couple of times it's felt defensive. Ultimate out, onto Zapman, has beads, has Aegis, uses the beads to jump out, uses the Aegis to survive the dive, and Zapman will live, but not without a tense moment. Typhoon flies through, snipes out a Cyclone Spin from the left side of the map, don't end up finding their target. Transformation out of Paul, who jumps on top of Shinto here, but how about the stun onto Paul? And Hardcore has got the last damage that the Leviathans need. Shinto evaporates Aurora's health bar, and the Leviathans, they'll grab 2 more kills.
And again, this is that call. Look, this should be a beeline to the Fire Giant. A few people go to zone, but we can see from here the Titans are falling back. Cyclone's ult is down, so a lot of the major steal potential disappears from the Titans almost immediately. But it's still going to take a little bit of time. Zapman's low. Like, this is one of those awkward Fire Giants where you don't want to take too much damage for it, so he's going to have to be careful. Lava pools, all that stuff. Either way, massive lead for them, plus the Fire Giant, plus the kills they just got. This is a wide open game for them.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be able to really start pushing forward and surging forward for the Leviathans.
Yeah, at this point the lead is a little more cemented than it felt like it was in Game 3, right? I mean, you have this 1.5.
2 minutes, 2K gold is not a lot
A
to
lot
play
can
with.
swing around. I mean,
As
it's a lot in the sense that, like, that early in the game, 2,000 gold is a lot.
Yeah.
But there's just so much moving and shaking that still has to happen throughout the course of that game. Like, at this point, the XP is almost closed up. I mean, it feels more solidified. The number is bigger. And the Leviathan's strong enough to push that lead a little bit more effectively now with how many items they've got. If you talk about tower damage, pushing map objectives, things like that. So with 3 or so minutes left on the Fire Giant power play, Leviathans will head back, Gore. They'll spend up some of their gold, and we'll get our first look at the Titans' base defense.
And again, already like a 1,300 gold increase from when they got the Fire Giant. If they lose this Fury, that'll help kind of negate that. So the Titans do a good job. Plus, an Oni Fury on top of that, Dave, now makes it a little harder to push up these waves. I'm specifically looking over towards left. Right is already near the tier 2, so the Phoenix exposed over there is in just more danger than any of the other lanes. Left pushed up back by the tier 2 of the Leviathan, so they have quite a way to go before they get minions there with them. It's not an EFG, so they don't have those backdoor protections stripped away, so they need the minion wave in order to get some of the tankier targets, right? Tier 1,
Yep.
That means nothing. Wrong, you can walk in there. Shinto and Zap should be plenty to kill that one off and no problem. Probably same with the tier 2, although I think the Titans could mount a defense if they really want. Around the Phoenix, you really need that wave. So luckily, they've got a push going on in mid and in left.
Wow, wrong you. Aggressive with his positioning, as always. Will belly flop out after sending a belch towards the front line of the Titans. Looks like a soft defense around this tier 2 tower. Could firm up a little bit if SOT continues to play this way, but there's just way too much damage from Zapman. So soft defense indeed. Titans will watch their left side tier 2 crumble. Still a tower in mid, Gore. Maybe that's what the Leviathans will end up rotating over for. But I look for a Roar and his Rivers Rebuke to play a big role in this Phoenix defense, separating out a couple members of the Leviathans on their dive in. And on the flip side, I look for a lot of this. Wrong you, Gore, even with the only 3 completed items plus the upgraded starter. At level 18, so tanky on this Bacchus. And Cyclone Spin melting down up into the ultimate he goes. Zapman takes 2 out of 3 of the snipes. The third hits Shinto, and Cyclone will riptide over to the side, and wouldn't you guess it, it's Wrong You on the belly flop back in. And wouldn't you guess it, it's Yarkor with a double kill. Paul and Aurora, the last 2 alive for the Titans. And it'll end up being down to Paul, who will not make it back into the fountain. And despite a stumble in game 3, the Leviathans take game 4, and they'll be your SPL Kickoff Tournament champions.
Reigning world champs still reign supreme overall in the SBL. Granted, it was a fun one for a lot of these teams to be able to come through, showcase what they have. I'm sure the Leviathans are enjoying
tournament win than Worlds.
Nah, I'm sure they're enjoying themselves. Just the same. Maybe not the exact same level of hype as Worlds, but at least they're having fun.
Yeah, no one's crying, no one's hugging. You know, I'm sure you're.
I don't know.
I don't know. Wrong. You seem pretty thrilled there. Look, this is. I think the way Zapman framed it again, if you hadn't heard me explain it earlier on, it's a slightly more serious version of scrims for these guys, and really getting more experience in a tournament-style bracket is never going to be a bad thing, right? I mean, you get more experience in longer sets, picks and bans, draft strategies changing. You get experience on throwing a 2,000 gold lead 5 minutes in, losing
and now they know
Giants.
how not to do that.
It'll never happen again, Gore.
Watch,
I promise you that.
phase 3, week 2, Leviathans versus whoever. They're going to get a 2K gold lead at 2 minutes, and they're going to know not to throw that.
They're going to keep
if they want to win the game.
Was it phase 2, week 3, you said?
I said phase 3, week 2.
All right, I flipped it around. Either way, predictions
If that
from
happens,
Goremizer.
it's going to be insane.
Leviathans win this set 3-1 over the
somebody.
Tartarus Titans. They are your SPL Kickoff Tournament champions. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Desk will round us out.
And welcome back to the final death segment of the SPL Kickoff Tournament. The Leviathans have done it. It took them 4 games to do it, but they're able to take the 3-1 victory over the Tartarus Titans and punch their ticket to being the winner here of the SPL Kickoff Tournament. And what a way to at least get the SPL kicked off here. I mean, overall, just kind of looking at the tournament as a whole here, Charlie, we got to see a lot of interesting picks come along the way. We got to see some very fun drafts out of some of these teams. And we've also gotten to see some pretty decently competitive sets as well, especially, I mean, even dating back to the Bolts and the Dragons at the very beginning of the week, now getting into this set here. But with this, it does prove that the Leviathans do indeed bleed.
Yep, I mean, I cannot believe we saw them drop that set again. If it was like a complete stomp one way or the other, it would make sense to me, but this time they had the lead once again like they have been doing all set, and then they just let it slip through their fingers, and it ended up just being a complete washing of the direction. But obviously this set, they recollected their thoughts, and looks much more like the Leviathans that we know and love.
A much cleaner game 4 here out of the Leviathans, able to close this one out, get a 3-1 win for themselves over the Tartarus Titans, and still proving that they are the reigning champions from last year's World Championships, and a lot of it comes off the back of Shinto here in this mid lane. How a much stronger performance on the Zeus this time around, wasn't getting absolutely bullied the entire time through, was able to get a nice lead for himself and pumping out some pretty strong damage this game.
Oh yeah, when I saw the Zeus pick, I was like, Shinto's got to be, upset about last game and wants to run this one back and prove that he can actually play this pick extremely well like we know he can. And of course, completely different. It was like night and day compared to the first game, obviously. So pretty happy. If you're the Zeus pick right now, able to get the tons of damage that we know Zeus brings. Look at this chain lightning just bouncing back and forth, doing so much damage. And Yarkor is able to interrupt the backline so much. Paul thought he was pretty safe on that Camazotz transformation, but not when Yark the Sharks run by.
No, Yark on this Camazotz putting out impressive numbers himself, all over the map too, throughout the entirety of this game. It took him a little while to finally start getting active, but once Yarkor flipped the switch and said, all right, it's go time, he and the rest of his team were able to pull up here and take a nice game number 4. Just shy of 25 or so minutes here, even able to get this nice Phoenix push right at the very end of the game. Paul was not allowed to be as active on this Morgan as he wanted to.
Yep, giving Paul the Morgan once again, and this time it's just able to get shut down, like it did last time. But still, you get to see him on one of his favorite picks, and just a complete night and day transformation. We love to see Panatom getting as active as he was this time, not letting the Circuit lead that he let slip through his fingers, not going to let that one shake his performance this time on the Zeus, and I was able to do so much on this pick. 7-1 this time. You got to be pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, a 7-1 jungler, a 4-0 mid laner here. It's everything you could ask for in the Atlantis Leviathans, and it's still the same team that we all know and remember from the World Championships and from the tail end of Season 8 last year. Should be a Sparks Flying season ahead for all of these teams out here. Again, this was the kickoff tournament. This isn't going to hold any major effect towards standings or anything. Mostly a lot of this chance for teams to come out here and get some LAN experience, get some practice back together, and really kind of get into the groove here as we get ready to go to Season 9.
Yeah, if at the very least, this was probably just a look at what we might be expecting. No one revealing all of their strats, but just giving us a little peek at what the standings of what we're going to be seeing going into this season. And obviously, everyone was looking very tough.
Yeah, tough opponents for everybody out there. But at the end of the day, it's only one team winning on. It's the Leviathans, and we've got their mid laner Shinto standing by for our post-game interview. Shinto, congrats on the win. Took you maybe an extra game compared to what you wanted to out there, but coming out of this tournament, getting ready for the SPL that's kicking off next week, what are kind of some of the general thoughts around the team getting ready to go into next week?
Yeah, we treat this tournament like a good practice, like a good competitive game, and yeah, to practice a lot for the SPL.
Yeah, and how are you guys feeling, now that SPL is coming up next week, now that you've gotten a chance to kind of all practice and get your LAN experience? How is everybody feeling moving in next week?
I mean, we feel confident. We feel we can win it all, and yeah, we are prepared.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are all, mentally sound out there. It seems like you guys have really still got it together, even from the tail end, of your World Championship run there. Did it feel good getting that rematch and still getting that win here in this set?
Yeah, it was good. I don't know. The games was kind of sloppy, but still it was really good matchups for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of a throw there in Game 3. You guys had a nice little lead, and then all of a sudden that Fire Giant just kind of spooked you.
Yeah, that Fire Giant was a really good call.
Yeah, definitely a great call onto them. Shinto, any expectations, maybe any words to the fans out there as we get ready for Season 9?
Thank you everyone for watching. Prepare for Season 9. It's gonna be a good season. It's gonna be a ton of good games and a ton of competitive gameplay of might.
Yeah, should be a great season. Shinto, thank you so much for standing by for the post-game interview. Congrats on your win. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Should be a great season out here, Charlie. I'm very excited. If this tournament's, even just, again, even though we didn't see the most top-end competitive sets out here, even though we got to see, some of the sillier games out there, still gives a lot of confidence at the level of competition we are going to be seeing as Season 9 truly rolls through.
Oh, yeah. I mean, taking a look at this bracket again, the Leviathans did not drop a game up until that finals matchup, and the Titans, again, also did not drop a game up until, they inevitably ended up with the 3-1 there. So both of them looking extremely dominant, but as you said, if seeing these matches and seeing just a peek into the competitive nature of these squads, we're going to have 8 very competitive teams, and I can't wait to see everyone once they really, catch the feet running and they're able to see how these rosters really mesh together.
Yeah, we got a nice little snapshot here this weekend of what we can maybe start to see as we get ready towards the SPL. Obviously, a lot of these players out here talk about how we didn't want to reveal a whole lot of strats, we didn't want to give away a whole bunch of things out there. And so I'm very excited to see exactly what will become the meta, what kind of things we will be seeing next week when these guys are playing for some big stuff out there on the line. A massive early phase 1 that's going to lead into some big tournaments later on down the road here. And every single one of these games is going to be so important for them as the season starts up.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the meta switch so much just from the SPL play-ins to the SEC qualifiers, and now this first SPL level tournament, the meta has been completely shifted. It's really, you can't really predict it. It's something that you just sort of gets formed. It's not something that you can say, and force on. And obviously right now, we've been seeing a lot of different strats, so very excited for this SPL to finally kick off.
Yeah, it's not just the SPL, though. There's so many things going on. Obviously, the Smite birthday event is still going through. Today's your last day to get 33% off of your gems, so make sure that if you haven't already, go in and get your gems before you don't get them on sale. Still take part in the event to get that Husky Handler Scotty skin. We've also got the Olympus Bolts coming in studio on Wednesday. We've got a Q&A post up on the Olympus Bolts Twitter, so make sure to ask them your questions for when they come into the studio. Thursday, we'll kick off our brand new season of the Smite Challenger Circuit for both NA and EU, so make sure you tune in for that. And then, what everybody really wants out there, the SPL starts back up on Friday, so make sure you're tuning in right here at twitch.tv/MikeGame. On behalf of myself, Charlie, all the other casters, production admins, everybody else behind the scenes, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you as the week goes on.